So I worked for his for almost 25 years, and then I came to TNF. So,
Okay. We're on the air.
We're on the air? Okay. I call to order this Borough of Oradell Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting. Notice of this meeting was published in the official newspaper, prominently posted in the Borough Hall, and filed with the clerk's office in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act. This meeting is a quasi-judicial proceeding. Decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must always be maintained. Any questions or comments must be limited to issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision. Thank you, everyone, for coming back. I want to thank everyone who were here the last meeting for your patience with our awkward meeting. So thanks for working with us on that. First and foremost, oath of office and closed session personnel matters. We had a closed session prior to this meeting where we swore in a few of our new or recurring members, Carlo Camporial, Maureen Day, and back because he couldn't get enough of us. Marvin Michelman will be sitting. Marvin Michelman will be sitting in as a second alternate, specifically for the purposes of the United Way hearing. So thank you and congratulations to all. During that, we also appointed a new a new zoning board attorney to take over as Bob Regan transitions out. This will be Mark Liebman, and his associate Danielle Federico is with us tonight from CSG Law.
Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, it's got that fourth. All right. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That being said, can we do the roll call? Steve, do you have the roll?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, sorry.
Mr. Lau?
Here.
Ms. Day?
here.
Mr. Camporelli?
Here.
Mr. Bartlett?
Here.
Mr. Barrows?
Here.
Mr. Odinsky?
Here.
Mr. Devine?
Here.
Mr. Centennial?
Here.
And Mr. Michelman here.
Mr. Michelman? Where'd you go? I didn't see it.
Boy, they forget you're ready.
All right. First order of business, approval of zoning board meeting minutes for January 22nd. Everyone received this in their packet. Does anyone have any comments, corrections? We have a motion to approve.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Okay. Second, anyone?
I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. The minutes pass. All correspondence listed in the...
Chairman, do you want to vote on the professionals?
No, I skipped something. Thank you. Okay. Before we get into correspondence, we need to reappoint our board planner and engineer. Does anyone have a motion to reappoint T&M Associates?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Do we have a second? All right. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? All right.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank-
Chairman and members of the board.
Thank you, Caroline, for your ongoing commitment. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Moving on to engineering. Can we have a motion to reappoint Neglia Engineering as the zoning board engineering firm?
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Board members as well.
Okay. We are whole. All correspondence is on file in the construction office at the town hall if you are so inclined. Okay, quickly, zoning board procedures. Some new faces, some old faces, so I'll keep it quick. The zoning board is here if you need to do something with your property that exceeds ordinance. If you receive a rejection letter from Steve for something you want to do, you come to us. We try to give everyone as much flexibility as possible, but if we cut you off and stop you from talking, it's not because we don't like you, it's because we're following the procedures set out by the state that we have to follow to keep everything in order. So that's what we're doing up here. Does Steve need to be sworn in? Okay. If you would be so inclined.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. No new cases will be started after 10:30 p.m.
Swear in the engineer and the planner also.
Oh, we got to swear everyone in. We have new cases. Sorry.
So who wants to go first? Do you both swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Do.
I do.
Thank you very much. Okay. At about 10:30, we'll look for an appropriate break to postpone the remainder to the next meeting. Any case not heard will be carried over to the next meeting. Do we have any resolutions to memorialize? I don't believe so, because
No.
we didn't accomplish anything last meeting. Okay. Moving on to the applications. All right. I'm going to try to get this right. Please bear with me. For calendar 883-24, Soroyo Realty, Mr. Alampi, do you have a programming note for us?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Chairman, members of the board, for the record, Santo Alampi on behalf of the applicant. We've been here and been providing testimony on the application, as most are aware. We've submitted revised plans to the board. The chief change amongst those revised plans are the removal of D variances. We did receive T&M's most recent review letter Friday, February 14th, and it opines that the D variances have been removed from the application. I believe I won't speak for Ms. Ryder, but that's what the letter states. It is our position that, therefore, the application should go back to the planning board because this board's jurisdiction stems from the D variance. As the applicant's attorney, my concern is not that this board is not capable, but my concern is if the board doesn't have jurisdiction, it opens up all sorts of potential issues. The world of financing has become quite crazy in terms of the amount of due diligence that banks are doing, and unfortunately we're starting to see them go into documents and question documents that historically they've never even asked or questioned. Much like notice, it's jurisdictional in nature. It could upset the apple cart. I believe it's properly before the planning board as opposed to this board, and given the significance of those changes, the testimony that's been presented by our engineer and our architect is going to have to be done again because the changes are significant to both of their actual plans. So it's not as if I could preserve their testimony. We're going to hear their testimony again, whether it's this body or the planning board. So I'd ask that this board, which has the ability to determine and decipher, to transfer it back to the planning board, where the planning board can then hear the application and proceed accordingly. And of course, I'll deal with Mr. Dempkin in making sure that we coordinate and notice properly and everything like that.
Okay. So procedurally, is it on this board to send it to the planning board, or is it their right to withdraw the application and have it heard by the planning board?
The question's posed to me, Chairman. The answer is both. This board can do it on their own, which is what I'm asking, or the applicant could withdraw and file at the planning board.
Mm-hmm.
I would suggest the latter, to have him withdraw without prejudice from this board, and then
Okay.
do an application. He's going to have to renotice on every matter, and he's got the plans ready to go, so just present the application to the planning board.
Okay, yeah, I feel like that gives you flexibility. If you withdraw without prejudice, if you need to come back to this board, we haven't ruled on anything, so it's a fresh application. But otherwise, if you can get in front of the planning board, we accept your withdrawal. We certainly could.
My only comment to that, Chairman, and I can obviously do that, I don't want to slow down the process of getting it over there so I can file the plans, obviously, but if Mr. Demkin wants me to prepare the forms again and resubmit and everything like that, then we'll proceed in that fashion. But I think the fastest route is just transfer it and I submit the plans to Mr. Demkin. But
I think my assistant already has some of the applications, so discuss with her what's needed for the planning board, but I think that gives a clean break.
Yeah.
And then we can start anew at the planning board section.
Okay. Yeah, if you don't mind, let's go that route. Okay?
Legally, there would be no difference. I mean,
Right.
you could certainly transfer it, take a motion here tonight, and have it formally transferred. There's no way for you to still hold jurisdiction because there's no D variances. So I agree with Mr. Lampe that there's no way for you to take action anyway. So once your jurisdiction's gone, it has to be transferred or withdrawn, and there's legally nothing stopping you from doing either.
Okay. So what's your recommendation? Should we take a motion and a vote, or should we just agree that it's been withdrawn?
I would make a motion and transfer it.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, before you get to that point, I just want to make the record clear with respect to this application had two D variances. One was a use-related matter. I believe it had to do with there being, with the residential uses on the ground floor. The other was a height variance, what was known as a D6, which I know we had some testimony on that. The applicant is still requesting a height variance. It appears based on the revised plans that it's at the threshold of a C variance versus a D variance, but you're close. So I just want to kind of put it out there that if there's going to be further revisions to the plans or anything mechanical or the elevator, et cetera, I want the record to be clear that we've recognized the fact that while at this point it appears there isn't a D variance, your wiggle room is very limited. So I just want to make sure everybody is aware of that fact.
that's absolutely correct, Chairman,
Okay.
and understood by the applicant.
Are there different forms for the planning board
That's
versus the zoning
why
board?
I'm-
Because that's my other question, because that would change my answer too.
I
There's-
believe there are. That's why I'm inclined to go with Steve's recommendation on this.
Yeah, there are, but he's made an application originally to the planning board.
Right.
So maybe some of those are still in effect, and you can use those.
Was that application withdrawn when you were before or did the planning board?
It was decided that there was a D variance involved, and then it had to come to this board.
So it got transferred to here from the planning board.
Correct.
So it was originally a planning board application,
Correct.
so it might be the planning board forms anyway.
It is.
Yes.
So what do we think?
I made my
However we-
suggestion.
Yeah.
However we do it, I'd like to do it so that if it comes back to this board,
Exactly.
the record has been preserved and doesn't have to be recreated, so that we don't have to sit through another,
If you,
trying to preserve.
Fair. No, that's fair.
I will say, if you do, and I would defer to Steve if he wants it formally withdrawn, but if it is withdrawn without prejudice and Mr. Lampe refiles, you would have to restart because the application goes away.
Chairman, it's my request that it be transferred. I have no problem submitting the necessary forms, submitting a letter explaining and outlining for purposes of the record that it go and why, and identifying what needs to be identified. It'll go in front of the planning board. There will be notice for that hearing. I don't know, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that both of this board's professionals are also the professionals for the planning board. I suspect that they've been reappointed, and if not, hopefully will be reappointed. So I think from that standpoint, they are more than equipped to bring either body up to speed as to what's going on.
In the interest of expediency, then I'm inclined to say let's make a motion to transfer. All the process and procedures regarding notice and everything still have to be followed, but if transferring, to Warren's point, if that preserves the record, should it end up back here,
Okay.
that probably makes sense.
Okay.
We have a motion to transfer to the planning board the case of 883-24.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay. Let's do the roll.
Okay, you want me to?
Sorry, yeah, I don't know the order.
Okay. Mr. Michaelman.
Not qualified.
Okay. Mr. Bartlett.
Yes.
Mr. Barros.
Yes.
Mr. Devine.
Yes.
Mr. Lau.
Not qualified?
Not
No.
qualified. Ms. Day.
Yes.
Mr. Camparelli.
Yes.
Ms. Odinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Santaniello.
Yes. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Your motion is granted and transferred back to the planning board. Okay. Next up, calendar 874-24, and Bob Regan is going to sit back in for this. Thank you, Bob, for your patience. Some of us need to step down for this one, but before we do, I think you're going to ask us about some scheduling.
Evening, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Bruce Whitaker from the firm McDonald Whitaker representing the applicant. We've made a request for a special meeting. This matter started last February, and I've talked with my adversary, and we believe that if we could have a special meeting where the evening was devoted just to this application, we could probably have this thing concluded. I understand that Mr. Reagan, as my adversary and myself, we are all available for next Wednesday. We only need to put notice out 48 hours in advance for a special meeting. So if the poll, your indulgence, if the board members are available, that would be a wise thing, I think, just to get this off your agenda.
Bruce, I'm sorry to interrupt you. As I said, I just want to check with
Okay.
Mr. Fox and Mr. Stephens. So
Okay.
2 seconds.
While he is checking, so Jeanette and I are recused from this case. I believe Tom has a conflict for Wednesday.
I have a conflict next Wednesday.
Oh, next Wednesday?
I can
Oh,
do
okay.
Tuesday.
All right, so, yeah, that would be an issue.
So we do want to have, if it comes to a vote, a 7-member board.
Yeah, with two of us out, Tom as vice chairman would be running the session. Next Wednesday's not going to work. Anyone else have a conflict with next Wednesday?
That would be only
Yeah,
6.
That would only be
Only
6,
six.
yeah. Do you have an alternate date? Do you want to work with the office?
Well, I think
We
you
could
want to
do
give,
that, or-
I think you want to give the board some time to check their calendars also.
Yeah,
You know, I don't think you can do it tonight.
yeah.
Are there other applications on for March the 17th?
Soon to tell.
Possibly, but residential, which should be quick if we can get through these tonight.
Can we work with the board and provide a few potential dates to you?
Certainly.
Is that plausible?
Why don't, we can canvass the board. Why don't I see what the agenda is for next month? And then we can keep that light also in the event that you can't find another meeting in that period of time.
Up until the 17th of March, I only have one night available, and that's 17.
I only got one night available up to 17th March 10th.
All right, so why don't we
So I
just,
think it's March 17th.
Available on the 17th.
why don't we just get this together, within the next couple of days?
Yeah.
Everybody can let us know what their availability is.
Yeah.
Try to put a calendar together.
Right.
Yeah, I've just asked this to be included, but so I can confer with my
Yes.
professionals.
I think realistically with my schedule, your schedule, we're probably going to be March 17th. I really do. I've only got one night before that I'm available.
Yeah, that might be it. So can we keep next meeting light? Can we keep the 17th fairly light schedule-wise? Maybe get this done with?
I can see what we can do. We're going to have to carry through what we have here, and then take a look at what else we have. I don't think it is a heavy schedule, but I'm going to have to check.
Maybe flip-flop it and have those others at a special meeting. Just a thought. I've done that as a board attorney.
Okay.
Okay.
Are you prepared to continue tonight?
Yes, we're going to have, I understand, it's Mr. Simon's show tonight. It's one witness.
All right.
I know we
Then,
have other things on the agenda, so I think we're going to be about an hour.
all right, then the two of us will recuse ourselves and,
Well, they're going to continue this now, we're going to do the other
You want to go with
residential cases first.
the residential one first?
what are we doing? No,
We're going to hear it now.
Oh, we got to do this now.
We're going to hear it now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And to that point, we'll stop this case at 9 o'clock in lieu of,
I would suggest going maybe a little bit further if that's the case, and look for a breaking point.
got it, okay.
All right, just knock when you're ready.
In the event that we can't hear the other applications, we can carry that to next month.
Got it. Okay, I guess with that, it was up to the,
Sure.
to continue.
Yeah, so, just give me a second.
Sorry. You guys.
Go on. Now reach.
We all set? We all set. Members of the board, good evening. Rob Simon here on behalf of various neighbors with regard to this application. I've previously stated their names and their addresses. I don't believe I need to do that. If the board recalls, where we last left off with regard to this application is that various clients of mine have introduced in the record a slideshow presentation with regard to certain aspects of the property and as it relates to the subject project. So what we're going to do at this point with the board's indulgence is sort of pick up where we left off in terms of the slides, and maybe I'm going to ask that we just go back just to reorient the board as to where we are with regard to the slide presentation. So maybe I would ask if you start, I think, I want to go back to slide 13. Is that slide? Okay, so why don't you continue? This is Jarrett Kurach, 273 Garden Place, Oradell, Block 223, Lot 6. So please proceed.
Okay, so this slide, I took this...
And as you recall, for each slide, because a stenographer is taking a verbatim record of this proceeding, what I want you to do is to verbally describe what we're looking at so that not only the people who are here, but anyone who is reading a transcript can understand what slide you're referring to and the context of the slide with regard to the presentation.
Okay, so this is a slide 13. This picture was taken on August 3rd, 2024 during the storm, and this is a corner of a project site, and this is where the three properties meet, which is our property, which is to the north of the southeastern corner. There's a Leslie Johnson and Peter Johnson's property, which is right next to it. On this side here.
When you say this side here, again, you have to verbally describe it.
This is...
So the Johnson property is block 223, lot 7, correct?
Yes. So basically, when you look towards Brookside, you see all this water running through, first through the Peter Johnson's property, then it enters project side on an angle, and then continues on the project site. So this is the same point which
okay,
is...
now you have to identify, as you go to a different slide, you have to identify the slide, identify the title of the slide, if that's applicable,
okay,
and then what it shows.
Okay, so this is a slide 14. It shows the same...
And what is it called? Is it titled Stormwater Runoff 29 feet from southeast corner into the project site?
Correct.
Okay, and it says picture from Jarrett Kurach, August 3rd,
2024.
Okay.
Yes. So this is the same corner, and it shows that the water runoff is absorbed mostly, 75% of the water runoff is absorbed by, it goes through the project site. About 25% goes through Peter's and my property. This will be...
So the yellow, going back to that for 1 second.
Okay.
So
the yellow line is a property line, and it's practically both sides are is the project site's property line.
And when you refer to southeast corner of the project site, that's the corner that you identify in the prior slide, correct?
That's the same one.
And the purpose of you showing this picture is for what? What are you trying to demonstrate?
I'm demonstrating that right now, before this project is completed, if approved, the majority of the water flows through the project sites, not through mine or Peter Johnson's property.
Thank you.
Then, and because what the site what the project is part of the project is raising the grade and filling the soil. There's going to be right here along the project site. There's going to be retaining wall that is built for the purpose of retaining soil on the other side. So by building this project, the hill is created, and the water will not flow up the hill; it will flow down. So after, if this project is completed, instead of 75% of water flowing through the project site, 100% of it will be flowing on my property and Peter's property.
Peter, meaning the Johnson property.
Mr. Johnson. Because where you see this red circle, at this point, I think the retaining wall is 4 feet high and is backfilled on the other side. So that water can no longer flow the way it flows naturally now.
Okay. Anything else you want to say about this slide?
Yeah, this is slide 19.
Okay, and now the slide 19 is entitled Overlay of Current Elevation with Proposed Plan,
Correct.
correct?
Correct.
And what is, and just first describe, there's a lot of colors on here.
Yes.
So why don't you first orient the board and the public and describe what the colors represent, and then speak to the purpose of this slide.
The colors here represent the way the property is naturally sloped before the soil is moved. And it's naturally sloped from the brook side, from the right corner, from the right bottom corner of this thing. You see that the current elevation is 32 feet. By them moving the soil and building retaining wall, is the thick purple line is 32 feet, right? So it's basically, practically, it alters the natural slope which water follows. That's the purpose of this slide. And now you see,
And the 31-foot contour is what is represented in the color red?
correct.
And the 32-foot contour, it is what's represented in the color purple?
Correct. The thick purple and thick red is actually the new contour. The existing, the current one is what's this color? This is light brown dotted line, right? So it totally changes the slope. Now the blue arrows and the blue squares is the actual height of the retaining wall. It starts close to Brookside, is 2 feet, and then the retaining wall raises, right? Then it's 3 feet, then it's 4 feet, and when you go around, when the proposed site meets my property, it goes even to 7 feet. That's how much it will be raised.
So the retaining wall height is 7 feet. Is that what you're referring to?
Retaining wall is about 4 feet, but then there's another one on top of it. So altogether, the soil will be moved by about 7 feet. And it's a massive. I'm not a contractor, but I am contractor. I'm an electrical contractor.
So as
I think that they proposing moving about 830 cubic yards of soil.
and the significance of this slide is, as stated, in what I'll call the starred area, that the retaining wall and the landscaping will raise the elevation of the property in some cases by 7 feet.
Correct. The difference between their land and mine is going to be 3 or 4 feet. I'm going to be walking up the wall, and the water has no way of flowing the way it was flowing before. It will be flowing through our property, raising this water level, and I don't want to find out if I'm going to have water in the basement after this is done.
Anything else you want to say about this particular slide?
I think I'm good on this, yes.
Okay. Are there any other slides that you want to present to the board that have not been presented either tonight or at the prior meeting?
Oh, I think we're good.
Okay. So Mr. Kurach is done now for now with regard to his slide presentation, and I guess it would be appropriate to open it up for questions for Mr. Kurach, based on his testimony this evening.
Okay. I mean, any members of the board have any questions?
How about the applicant's attorney?
I'm sorry, Mr. Whitaker.
Correct. You testified at the last hearing, correct? Correct. And at that time, you admitted that the water that is flowing on your property and is flowing on the applicant's property doesn't emanate from the applicant's property, but it's flowing through and across the applicant's property, correct? Correct. So it's not this property that's the subject of the application that's creating the water that flows across your property. It's coming from somewhere else.
It's coming from up to Brookside.
And you recognize that the wall that's being proposed by the applicant, as well as the soil that's being proposed to be imported, that it's meeting all of the code requirements. You're aware of that?
Well, I'll take your word for it.
Okay. Nothing further.
Just a little follow-up, Mr. Koretz. In terms of the water that you're showing on your slides this evening, does some of that water come across the applicant's property before reaching your property?
Yes, you can see it in this slide that's up there. It's about 29 feet. This is the corner. This is the corner of the property.
You're referring to the slide that is entitled "Stormwater Runoff 29 feet from southeast corner into the project site"?
Correct. And this is 29 feet into the project site.
Thank you. Nothing further.
So follow up, Mr. Korat. You've never done anything to try to correct the water flowing over your property. Is that correct?
I never raised the slope. No.
You recognize, though, that you have the ability to raise the slope on your property.
Well,
you recognize you have the right to do that.
Yeah, I can.
Thank you.
Can I just say something about that?
Sure, you can respond.
Okay. So you leveling proposed site. If I decide to do the same, and I would want to have a leveled yard, I'm gonna come. I'm gonna meet your level there at 4 feet. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna create a dam, and the water is gonna show up in places that it's never showed before. So that level and that slope should not be touched. It should be left the way it is. Otherwise, you're altering it and you're pushing it onto your neighbor's property.
Thank you, Mr. Koretz. Okay, good.
David, from the professional perspective, do you have any questions regarding the water flow or any comment
I have no questions.
this time? Caroline. I'm sorry, Caroline?
I don't have any questions, thank you.
No questions.
No questions, okay. Anybody from the board?
I'm kind of curious. We have an existing condition, pre-existing condition, however you want to phrase it. How will this construction change what currently exists?
I just described that, sir.
Please.
Sorry, can you speak up?
Okay. This will alter the water flow, and it will raise the level to the level of this water. 29 feet. They have. It's 75% of the water flows through the project site, and 25% of this water flows as per this.
I'm going to object to that. I don't think he's got any basis or foundation for measurements.
Wait a second, Mr. Whitaker. He's answering the board member's question as best he can.
Yeah, but he can't opine about this. He has no basis for it.
Well, the board has the ability to accept his testimony for what it is as a non-expert witness, which we've acknowledged. So I believe he's able to answer the question as honestly as he possibly can. Go ahead, Mr. Koretz.
So this slide, it's a picture of a water that runs, and maybe it's not the biggest storm I've seen, but I took that picture. So we measured based on this picture and based on the length of the fence, and we can tell that 29 feet of water flows through the project site, and just maybe 10 over here flows through ours. So it's probably 75% of water is absorbed runs through the proposed site, and 25% runs on my property. When they raise the soil and they build the retaining wall up by 4 feet, there's no way that water will have any way of going through that property, because water will follow the lowest point. It will drip along that built wall on my property. Even if I want to build trees to make it, they might be taken out by the flow and by the debris that water is bringing through.
And is the lowest point your property, or is the lowest point on the other side?
The lowest point, the water kind of flows through the properties and goes along to the train tracks. So it just travels through our properties, right? But it will be altered by what's proposed.
Understood, it's going to be altered, but that's what I'm trying to understand. The water is going to flow down, it's going to hit something, and it's going to go on either side. Will it always go towards your property, or will it go on the other side?
Yeah, but now we share now we share that runoff. So it's, if water makes damage, it's going to make some damage on their property, it's going to make some damage on mine. But by them raising it, none of the damage will be absorbed, and there's going to be more damage on my side.
But there are two sides that we're talking about. You only have one side. Is the water only going to go towards your property, or will it go to someone else's
It
property?
will go through mine because they raised theirs. They built the hill, and water is not gonna flow up the hill. They building a hill. They raising by 4 feet. Sometimes down the property by 7. The water is not gonna flow through this. Maybe it will flow just a little bit, and it will back up. It will flow to the lowest point.
That's what I'm asking. Is your property the lowest point?
Yes, it's the lowest point is somewhere by the train tracks, but my
I'm
property
talking
is
on the street itself.
right now where you see this picture. Our properties are even. You see, because this water flows 25% on mine, 75, but right here is even. Right now they're gonna build a step that's gonna be 4-foot step. It's not, so it's gonna go only on mine. It's not gonna go on theirs. It will create more damage on my property.
But there's property on the other side also, isn't there?
There's the other property is similar situation to what I'm describing. Peter Johnson's property, it will have the same effect.
That's the point I was trying to get to. Okay, now, if I recall prior testimony, this was an extreme weather event. Is this a normal, or was this a normal situation that every time it rains, you have this kind of water situation?
We documented few, and we also sent letters to the town and emails to the town about this. Now, just to, I wanted to say something about a single event, right? I'm a contractor in New York City. Hurricane Sandy was a single event. They rewrote code books because of that event. People built it differently. People put electrical rooms on upper floors because that one event.
This is not.
And it's not a single event. We did not document all of them, but we've documented at least 1 or 2 per year.
You're saying 1 or 2 per year is like this?
Yes, 1 or 2 per year are like this.
And when, just for the records, so the record's clear, when you're saying 1 or 2 a year are like this, you mean the amount of water that's depicted in this slide entitled Stormwater Runoff 29 feet from southeast corner to the project site, correct?
Correct.
Sorry. That's okay. So you're saying twice a year, the water event that's depicted in this slide will be expected?
Yes.
Thank you.
Is it your main concern that you're going to get water in your basement?
No, it's also it might take down my fence as it did already on the other side. I showed that was part of a slide. Any debris that this water brings with it, if it pushes against your fence, it took the concrete post out of the ground. I had to repair.
Has it done anything so far? Any damage?
Yes, it did. That was one of the slides from before. If we go back, it's the damage. My fence went down.
So it's already occurring?
Yes.
What is the depth of your property?
Depth on my property?
Yes, the distance from, or from the back of your house to this fence?
The distance, I would say?
Depth, yeah, distance.
From my house to this, probably 20 feet, 20, 30 feet.
That's all?
Yes.
That's all.
Have you looked at collectively some of the proposed water collection facilities that the engineers included in the site plan to see whether or not that will actually alleviate any of this, the water flow based on the absorption?
Mr. Chairman, I'm just going to interrupt just for 1 second.
Yes, sir.
We do have a professional engineer that is going to address all of the...
We'll leave it.
That's what I figured. Thanks.
Okay. Anyone else questions?
So I have a question, but it's more directed towards the applicant, if that's appropriate now or not.
I think we should wait till we hear the engineer.
Okay.
Any other comments back from the applicant?
Good. Okay. So then with that, unless you have any other comments regarding any of the slides, why don't we keep that up there for now, and let's call Paul Fox, our engineer. Is he here? Yep, there he is. Hey, Paul. Paul.
Thank you.
So may I,
Raise your right hand. You swear or affirm that the testimony will give you something
I do.
and to the record, please state your full name and spell your last.
Paul Fox, F-O-X.
Mr. Fox, please provide for the benefit of the board your qualifications, including education, affiliation, areas of expertise, and your experience in presenting engineering testimony before land use boards throughout the state of New Jersey, as well as being a engineer on behalf of land use boards in the state of New Jersey.
Sure. I have a Bachelor's of Science degree in Civil Engineering from Union College. I have a Master of Engineering degree in Civil and Environmental Engineering from Cornell University. I'm licensed as a professional engineer in New York and New Jersey. I'm a certified municipal engineer in New Jersey. I've completed required DEP coursework for stormwater review for municipal engineers. I'm currently employed by Apgar Associates and have worked there since 1996, providing both private as well as municipal services. I'm currently the municipal engineer for the Borough of Far Hills in Somerset County, as well as Harding Township in Morris County, where I serve both as the Planning Board engineer, Board of Adjustment engineer, and the Board of Health engineer, in addition to being the municipal engineer. I've also had the opportunity to serve on my own local planning board as well as Board of Health.
Thank you. And your license remains in good standing, correct?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And the times you have appeared to present engineering testimony before many land use boards throughout New Jersey, correct?
That is correct.
And on those occasions, were you so duly qualified as an expert in the area of engineering?
Yes, I have.
Mr. Chairman, I believe the witness can be accepted as qualified.
Thank you, Mr. Regan. Thank you. Mr. Fox, you've had an opportunity to review the application materials and the ordinances as pertaining to the application that is before the board this evening, correct?
That's correct.
And you're familiar with the property and the surrounding area, correct?
That's correct.
Why don't you start off by providing some general site comments before we get into some particulars about the water issue?
Sure. The first thing I noted when I reviewed the site plan was that for the easternmost parking spaces on the site, they do not have the required 24-foot aisle behind them to allow for vehicles to back up out of the parking space and exit the parking lot. That's actually a requirement in the New Jersey State residential site improvement standards, and that's not met with the site plan that's been submitted. Additionally, the plans show that there's going to be a proposed access easement for the Borough of Oradell along the northern property line.
So if you're looking at the plans, that's on the left side of the property.
That's correct.
Right? Go ahead.
There's an easement shown along that northern property line. There hasn't been any testimony that I've been present for where they've discussed what the intent of that easement is for. Given the proposed grading, it's unclear what the easement would be providing in terms of access, what it's required for, what it will be used for, and its purpose. That is part of this application. They're proposing that, so it should be clear to the board what is that for. Secondly, it's important as this area could be used as buffering for the adjacent residential properties. Finally, it's also unclear whether or not the grading will allow for whatever use is being proposed in that area. The final item is looking at parking. I suggest that the applicant should have to post no parking signs along the road frontage
The road is only 24 feet wide, and that's insufficient for two-way traffic plus a lane of parking. So to avoid the temptation for visitors and whatnot to use parking in front of the structure on the street, there should be no parking signs placed there.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. So let's now move on and focus on your review of the proposal as it pertains to stormwater management, flooding activities. And I neglected to ask you, just so the record is clear, in your review of this application, you've also been present during the testimony of the applicant's witnesses in support of this application, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And you were present during both hearings during which our clients made their PowerPoint or slide presentation.
Yes.
And you witnessed those various slides that were part of the record that were described.
That's correct.
So why don't you, with that background, why don't you start by addressing your comments and any issues you may have with regard to the stormwater management design, measurements, et cetera, proposed by the applicant for this application.
So the stormwater management for the site consists of two dry well systems being installed, one under the parking area and one to the north of the building, to the left side of the building as you're looking at the site from the street. Calculations provided by the applicant's engineer claim that the dry wells were designed for the 100-year storm. In fact, the dry wells were designed to contain stormwater runoff from only a 3-inch storm, whereas the 100-year storm is actually well over 8 inches in this area. The dry wells will be overflowing based on that design before we even reach the peak of the 100-year storm. So the proposed dry wells for the 100-year storm on this site will actually have no impact on the peak runoff that will result from the proposed development. Secondly, the dry wells for the parking lot runoff do not have any overflow provision. It's unclear where the stormwater will go when the dry wells overflow. If this runoff is directed over the adjacent retaining walls, the integrity of the retaining walls may be impacted. The proposed dry wells only address stormwater runoff from the roof and parking lot. They do not address the increase in runoff resulting from the conversion of woods to lawn, and also don't address the increased runoff resulting from the proposed patio and walkways behind the building.
So just to stop you there, so that any runoff from anything on the property as constructed other than the roof and the parking lot is not going to be addressed by any type of stormwater management facility, correct?
That's correct. I would also point out that the dry wells located on the north side of the building, that's to the left of the building, are designed with open grates and will therefore also collect surface runoff from the front yard and side yard. The sizing of those dry wells did not consider the additional stormwater runoff that would be collected from the lawn area. So again, those dry wells will actually be full before the peak of the storm is even hit.
And the significance of that, just to bring it full circle, is what?
The significance of that is that the proposed stormwater mitigation measures will really not have any impact, and that in fact the resulting impact of the proposed construction and the increase in stormwater runoff for the large storms like that will not be mitigated at all.
Okay.
Looking at the submitted plans, they indicate that soil testing was completed on March 26th of 2024, and it was found that the soils have a permeability of 2 inches to 6 inches per hour. This is noted on sheet 2 of the engineering plans on the top right. This does not agree with the information provided in the April 3rd, 2024 soils report prepared by Johnson Soils Company and submitted as part of the application. That report states that one laboratory test was performed based on the NJDEP Stormwater Best Management Practices Manual, and the test result was only 0.6 inches per hour. The submitted soils report includes a map showing where those borings were completed. This map shows that boring B1 being located where true dry wells were to be installed. However, those dry wells were later relocated and are now at a different location on the site. So realistically, the soil sampling that was done is no longer applicable to what was submitted as part of the current site design.
So the soil testing was performed in an area that is not the area where the proposed dry wells are going in?
That's right. I'd also like to point out the submitted soils report indicates that the depth of the soil where the permeability testing was completed was at 10 feet in boring B1. Based on the site grading and the dry well design, that depth is approximately 4 feet below the bottom of the proposed dry wells. This does not conform with accepted soil testing requirements that are referenced in the submitted soil report.
Can you just describe, just real quickly, first of all, what is required and the significance of not doing it as required by best management practices?
So the Best Management Practices Manual is a DEP guidance manual on designing stormwater mitigation measures. And there's lots of good information and essentially requirements if this were considered to be a major development, but would also be recommendations for development that is not considered a major development to make sure that the proposed stormwater mitigation measures function as intended. In this case, what's being proposed in the soil testing does not conform.
Okay.
The soils report references the DEP Stormwater Best Management Practices Manual. That manual recommends that the permeability rate for stormwater management features, in other words, the design permeability rate, that you utilize a permeability rate equal to 1/2 of the tested soil permeability rate. In that case, since what they tested was 0.6 inches per hour, you should be using a 0.3 inches per hour infiltration rate for design purposes. The problem with that is the DEP recommends not using dry wells wherever the design permeability rate is less than 0.5 inches per hour. So in this instance, the use of dry wells to mitigate stormwater increases is not recommended because the soil permeability is so low.
I know we'll get to it a little bit later, but when that happens, right, to a development project, what is the result of that determination or finding?
Well, basically what that means is trying to use underground stormwater management techniques that rely on infiltration should not be utilized on site. Rather, you should be using surface detention basins, bioretention basins that allow stormwater to be retained and slowly released on the site. So using something underground is really just not possible when you have that poor of a soil permeability. That also impacts the drain time of a dry well. The DEP recommendation is that dry wells should be designed that they drain within 72 hours. In this case, with that low of a permeability rate, it won't meet the DEP recommendation for drain time of a dry well. So you could have a situation where the dry well still has water in it when another storm comes and that dry well is needed to mitigate the stormwater impacts. The design engineer utilized something called the rational method as well as the modified rational method for the calculation of stormwater runoff and the design of dry wells for this project. That has to do with how you calculate how much stormwater runoff is generated and then how you account for the volume that is being generated and stored in your stormwater management system. I would point out that the DEP revised their stormwater management in 2023 that actually no longer permits the use of this method in calculating stormwater.
And what's the significance of that, if any?
The significance is that it's a very inaccurate method, and the DEP used to allow it for smaller sites, but anymore they don't allow it at all. Page 2 of the drainage calculations includes a statement: runoff coefficients were selected for the 100-year 60-minute storm of 3 inches. The drainage calculations don't explain what is meant by this or why the 60-minute storm was utilized for the design of the dry wells. While this is technical in nature, the design of stormwater detention system relies on the fact that you do a stepwise analysis for different storm durations to identify which produces the maximum amount of runoff. In this case, that wasn't done as part of the design of the dry wells. Pardon me. The stormwater management design assumes that runoff from the proposed patio and walkways will be collected by the dry wells. In fact, there's no features on the site plan that would allow for that to happen. Looking at section 240-13.7 of your borough code, minimum standards for site plan approval, it says, in reviewing a site plan application, the approving board shall ascertain that the following minimum standards are complied with. Number 3 in that section reads that adequate provision is made for the disposal of stormwater as approved by the borough engineer so that no runoff onto any adjacent property shall occur. It's my professional opinion that this minimum standard has not been satisfied.
And Mr. Fox, when we're talking about stormwater, we're not just talking about stormwater from the sky, from the clouds, but also any water that ends up on that subject property, even if it's coming from another property, correct?
That's correct. From an overall standpoint, it's generally apparent that the site soils at this property have insufficient permeability to successfully manage stormwater runoff using dry wells. Rather, surface stormwater detention basins or bioretention basins should be utilized for stormwater management. This change in stormwater management will require that the amount of building coverage and parking coverage be reduced to allow for space to construct these stormwater management features.
So, in your review of this application, Mr. Fox, and all the supporting materials, and then comparing that or reviewing that in the context of just as an example, the PowerPoint presentation and the slides shown by various surrounding neighbors to this site, do you have any comments or thoughts as a professional engineer as to these impacts and what the proposed development, if approved, will do to those impacts, if any?
Well, I think the photo that we have here is really...
And when you say the photo,
I'm sorry.
Which photo, Mr. Fox?
This is the page from the PowerPoint presentation titled Stormwater Runoff 25 feet from the southeast corner into the project site. And I may look for one other photo here. So this photo is called Stormwater Runoff.
And you're now referring, for the record, to a different slide that was previously presented by the neighbors with regard to this application.
That's correct. This is a very important and useful slide for you all to understand. When you look at this, the black fence line that is going up the street or up the lawn toward the end of Genther Avenue That represents the property line of this applicant's site. And as you can see, the stormwater runoff that is overflowing from the municipal streets is flowing across the neighbor's property and then meanders across the next neighbor's property and then meanders across the applicant's property. And this is very clearly shown on this photo. And this is actually compared to the amount of runoff. I think this storm is fairly mild compared to some of the other photos that we've seen for other storms.
And when you say this storm, you're talking about the storm based on the photo that was taken by Mr. Kurach on August 3rd of 2024.
That's correct. So what you're looking at here is the portion of the applicant's property is to the right of that fence going up the lawn toward the end of Ginther Avenue. What the applicant is proposing to do is build a 3 to 4 foot high retaining wall along that fence line so that stormwater runoff no longer passes through his property. Rather, it's forced off onto the adjacent property. I have been providing municipal engineering services for 29 years, and this would never be permitted. To push stormwater and floodwaters off of your site onto a neighbor's site as part of a board approval. It's my professional opinion that
And that before you go to your professional opinion, just to kind of close the loop on that, and it's not just the fact that you're constructing a retaining wall, but it's also raising the grade, correct? Good.
So the stormwater runoff and these floodwaters will no longer impact their property. Good for them. Now it's all going to be pushed off onto the neighbor's property. Is that something that this board really wants to approve? It's my professional opinion that this result clearly violates the borough's minimum standards for site plan approval as contained in Chapter 240 of your Land Development Code and will result in irreparable harm to the adjoining property owners. This site plan should be revised to eliminate any proposed fill within the area where floodwaters presently flow and provide a realistic stormwater management system that eliminates reliance on the poor permeability of the site soils while still meeting the requirements of the Borough Code.
I have no further questions for Mr. Fox at this time.
Mr. Whitaker?
Mr. Fox, you've been to the site?
Yes, I have.
Have you been to the site during any of these rain events that have been described?
No.
In connection with going to the site, have you been on the properties of those neighbors that are objecting to this application?
No, I have relied on the photographs presented.
So you haven't been on their properties or looked at what, if any, type of drainage facilities or improvements they have on their properties?
I've only seen what's been shown on the photographs and the videos that the boards have seen.
So again, you haven't been on their property to make any observations?
That's correct. The observations are
I
from
just
what's been...
Wait.
Answer my question.
No, but if he wants to clarify his answer, he's permitted to do so. Go ahead, Mr. Fox.
My observations are presented based on what's been presented by the neighbors.
So your observations are based upon what the neighbors have told you and what they've shown you?
Correct.
Have you done any OPA requests on any of those properties of the neighbors that you represent?
No, I have not.
Do you know which properties it is that you that your neighbors own?
Yes.
You know their names and the properties?
Not which property and which owner belongs to which, no.
You've attended every meeting?
I believe I may have missed one early on, but otherwise, I think since October, I have been at each of the hearings.
So the meeting started in May, so you were not at the initial meetings that Mr. Halls testified to?
That's correct.
Okay. So are you aware of the testimony that was provided by Mr. Halls in which he stated in essence that the drainage proposal being made will exceed what would be required for this type of development?
It's my professional opinion that it does not.
Were you here for that meeting when he testified that way?
No, I was not.
Okay. Were you here at the meeting when the applicant's engineer, Mr. Halls, testified as to how the drainage system would work and reviewed this with the board engineer, who basically concurred with the opinions rendered by Mr. Halls.
No, I was not.
So you missed that May meeting when the major part of the engineering testimony was provided.
That's correct.
So the meetings that you attended, did you take notes at those meetings with the additional information?
Some notes, yes.
And those basic meetings were with the architect and then was with the planning testimony?
I believe Mr. Halls also testified.
And how did he testify at the second meeting?
He testified as planning testimony?
Correct, okay.
I got that right.
So he didn't have at that point drainage testimony?
Correct.
Because you missed that?
Correct.
You've reviewed the calculations and the report that was provided by Mr. Halls, and you've opined your opinion in regards to that. Did you write a report yourself in regards to this matter?
No.
Typically, when an engineer looks at a proposal and finds that there are issues with that proposal, isn't it very common to write a report or write an opinion letter and provide it before making testimony? Did you do anything like that in this instance?
Which are you requiring? Did he do it, or is it
Did
typical?
you do it?
I did not.
You did give your opinion that this is not considered to be a major development, correct?
That's correct.
Have you reviewed the engineered report that came from the board engineer?
Yes, I did.
And it's my understanding then you disagree with the board engineer's review as well as the opinion and the calculations that were prepared by Mr. Hall?
In what regard, Mr. Whitaker?
In connection with the reports that were written.
I'm not sure what specific.
Yeah, you have to. If you can point to
the drainage calculation report that Mr. Hall prepared.
Yes, I disagreed within my testimony addressed those
The
items.
February 16th report from Neglia Engineering.
I did review that. I don't have any specific comments on it.
No further questions.
Just want to have just a couple of just redirect. Mr. Fox, if you were present when Mr. Halls stated to this board that the stormwater management system and design exceeds applicable standards, would you agree with that statement?
I would disagree.
And if you were present when Mr. Halls explained to the board how the drainage system would quote unquote work, could that possibly be different than the system that he designed, that he put forth on his site plan? Or would it would be what is provided to the board by way of site plan and supporting calculations?
I'm sorry, I didn't
I don't
follow.
understand the question.
Yeah. Is what his statement, would Mr. Halls be able to provide a statement to the board that is about how the stormwater system works that is different than what is on his plan?
I object to that question. That's pure conjecture. The real issue here is that Mr. Fox wasn't at the May 20th meeting that he's admitted he wasn't to when Mr. Hall spent that night explaining the drainage system.
So do you need to hear Mr. Halls explain the drainage system when you can just look at it on the site plan in conjunction with the stormwater calculations that were provided?
Well, I think what you're asking is, I'm assuming his testimony would have reflected the plans that were submitted as well as the calculations that were
Correct.
submitted. And my testimony tonight are based on those two items. If his testimony was different from what was submitted to the board, then that's a whole nother ball of wax.
Right. And in terms of the all other ball of wax, if his testimony was different than what was on his plans and his supporting calculations, he would typically have to revise his plans and calculations and provide that information in documented form to the board, correct?
Correct.
And when you are participating in an application where you are not representing the applicant or the board, but rather an interested party and providing professional engineering testimony, do you typically prepare a written report prior to that testimony?
No.
Nothing further.
Mr. Fox, as a municipal engineer, you review engineering plans that are submitted by an applicant, prepared by a licensed engineer in New Jersey.
That's correct.
And would it be correct that before you render a final opinion in connection with a plan submitted, you're going to make every effort to listen to the testimony of the engineer that prepared those plans?
No. We prepare a report for the board's review prior to testimony being given, no different than this board.
And do you use as part of your decision-making before an application is finalized, do you make an effort to be at a meeting to listen to the testimony of the engineer when they testify, or do you take a pass on those meetings?
No, we attend the meetings.
Thank you.
Anything else? David, do you have any questions or comments regarding your the engineering report and what was reviewed from the borough's perspective?
Sure. Sure, I got a couple of questions. So you make reference to the DEP stormwater regulations. What developments do those apply to?
Those apply, the regulations apply to major developments.
And then this application, is this considered a major development?
Again, no, it's not.
Okay. As far as the borough's ordinance, what does it indicate as far as a minor development? What's the requirements?
The requirements for a site plan, which is what this has been filed as, I can read them again for you. Those requirements, minimum standards for site plan approval. The approving board shall ascertain that the following minimum standards are complied with, that adequate provision is made for the disposal of stormwater as approved by the borough engineer, so that no runoff onto any adjacent property shall occur.
Okay. So as far as the design before the board, have they designed it to collect the runoff from their property?
No. The stormwater runoff at the back of the property is not being collected. And the stormwater runoff that is being collected is not what it is claimed as far as controlling the 100-year storm.
But I believe his 100-year storm that he was referring to is the 3-inch, which I believe is the 24-hour water quality storm.
There's a big difference between the water quality storm and the...
As far as, I guess, have you done work in Bergen County in the past?
Not in the recent past that I can recall, no.
I know typically in the area, the way things are handled for developments, well, I understand you talked about the rational method and the other stuff. Typically, the way it's looked at least for minor developments, is to address the increase in impervious coverage on the property.
Mm-hmm.
So the sizing was based off of the increase in impervious coverage for 3-inch rainfall. As it relates to the rainfall event on August 3rd of 2024, are you familiar with the rainfall amount from that storm?
No, I am not.
Okay. Based on the Hallworth weather station, which is around the corner here,
Mm-hmm.
it was 1.68 inches of rain. So, given that information, would the system designed by the applicant, would it handle that rainfall?
Yes, it would. I think the problem, what you're talking about from this picture, is that all the stormwater that presently runs on the applicant's site would actually be forced off onto the neighbor's site by the proposed construction.
Now, all of it would, or?
Well, if you look at the black fence and the yellow line that's going up along it, that represents the boundary line of the applicant's property. So you can see all the floodwaters that are running on the applicant's property. Once you build a 3 to 4 foot retaining wall and put 3 to 4 feet of fill, all of that floodwater will no longer be able to go onto the applicant's property. Rather, it's going to be forced onto the neighbor's property.
Right. Is that floodwater from this property, or is this floodwater from off-site?
I think it's from a multiple of sources, but I haven't reviewed that in specific.
Okay. Now, this is the first we're seeing these pictures. Just looking at it, just beyond, so the fence that's on the property line, if you look at the first post, vertical post, if I'm looking at it correct, it looks like water's coming from the neighbor's property onto the subject property. I could be wrong.
That's correct. I would agree with that.
So some of this water that we're talking about that's impacting the people are coming from the people in question.
So that's a supposition. I think the videos and the photographs that are presented to the board show that most of that water is coming off of the end of Brookside Avenue in Genther.
Okay. Did you look to see if there's something that can be done off-site to address water that's coming from Brookside?
No, that did not get included in my scope of work.
Okay, fair enough. As it relates to stormwater measures, is it common during your review process that if there are issues with soil testing and other matters that the applicant's engineer would address those as part of resolution compliance?
No, not where the stormwater is a requirement for site plan approval.
So it's always 100% resolved
Correct.
at the time of the hearing?
That's right.
Fair enough. Okay. I have no further questions.
Carolyn?
Thank you. I just have a couple questions. At the very beginning of your testimony, you spoke about parking briefly.
Yes.
Just go back to that. So, I guess, did you have concerns about parking on the site, or there being sufficient parking? Because my recollection is you made a comment about not permitting parking on the public road. Is that correct?
No. The first issue was that the applicant hasn't provided the required aisle width in the parking lot under residential site improvement standards. My last comment regarding the site plan was that there should be no parking posted in front of the structure, so cars that are coming, visiting, whatnot, do not use that and end up blocking the street from two-way traffic.
Okay.
I'm sorry, signage, this is what you're talking about, right? Sorry.
Right. The reason that I'm asking that is because it was my recollection from the testimony of the applicant that, in fact, I think I actually asked him, is there sufficient parking on the site based on the number of intended residents and staff and visitors? And if I didn't, someone else certainly did, and that they testified. The testimony was that there was more than sufficient parking on site, and I think even that there were similar parking situations elsewhere, and it's satisfactory. So is there a particular reason about parking on the street? It just seems that this is, I don't recall this being brought up before.
Just because it would obstruct traffic.
So Mr. Fox, just for clarification, you're not opining as to the number of spaces or whether the number of spaces is sufficient for this proposed operation. You're just talking about geometry.
Correct.
And in order to have such a signage or such a restriction on the street, the mayor and council would have to determine that, correct?
Normally,
this board doesn't have jurisdiction for that.
In most municipalities, that would be correct. It's something that the board would require the engineer to put on their plan, and then the applicant would have to get approval from the council.
Okay. All right.
And Caroline, can I just jump in off of that?
Sure.
So as far as parking along the street, if we were to restrict parking along here, don't we have the same conditions further down the street as far as the road width?
I don't think there's any multifamily uses down that street, although I didn't investigate that fully.
So I'm just going to jump back in. I don't believe this is a multifamily use. This is a use that's considered a single-family use within the state of New Jersey. So I'm sorry, Mr. Atkinson, to cut you off. That's not my intent.
That's fair.
But I just want to make sure the record is clear that this is not a multifamily development. The board has heard other similar, other applications for multifamily development, and that is not what is here, in my opinion.
And the standards similar to a single-family residence apply here.
Yes, I believe we've all heard the testimony with respect to the fact that the first level will contain a group home, I believe, and then there's going to be the two apartments upstairs that are associated with a group home. It actually functions as one unit, which was a testimony. So I'm not my intent to cut off you or Mr. Atkinson, but when I heard multifamily, I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page. So my apologies. Go ahead. You said
problem.
multifamily.
No problem. Again, it was really just a minor comment of mine that the board should consider avoiding having parking in front of the building just because of the width of the street.
Okay, thank you.
But can I just ask to clarify the one question though that you brought up with regard to this space within the lot? Your first comment before you got to signs, whether or not there's adequate room, aisle space in there, is that not necessary because we're looking at this as a single family, or is there still not adequate, turning space within the parking lot?
As far as the standard, it's 24 feet.
Yeah.
There are times where you can go less than 24 feet and still have sufficient room to make the maneuvering through here. I believe the testimony was that there was sufficient room to maneuver in the site by the applicant's engineer.
So if I could just jump back in, the testimony that we're alluding to is the testimony that Mr. Fox didn't hear or review, and he admitted it because it was the first meetings that you didn't come to. And there was testimony at that time that the basic aisle width is 24 feet except for one parking space, and we had said that that would probably be for an employee to park there, and they would be used to it. There was not a great deal of testimony, board members would recall, from Mr. Toronto about the amount of parking that these type of facilities need, and it was based on his experience with all the other facilities he has that are similar to this. And we know that the board can make a recommendation to the mayor and council for no parking, but it's not anything the applicant could do. And I take it, Mr. Fox, that your recommendation on the narrowness of the street and recognizing this is a single-family home also, that if the street's that narrow, your recommendation is, and you've got an experience in municipal engineer, is to have no parking all the way down that street.
I'd have to look at that closely before making that recommendation.
So you didn't go all the way down the street when you were on the site?
I did go down the street, but I wasn't looking at it with respect to parking.
You didn't make those observations?
I wasn't looking at it with respect to parking.
Thank you.
Mr. Fox, with regard to your comment about the width of the road and the no parking signs, it's not necessarily based on the fact that it's a multifamily, but rather the fact that there are going to be more parking spaces attributed to this lot than parking spaces attributed to other lots along the street, correct?
Yes, that's a fair statement. When driving down the street and looking at the other properties on the street, this property would clearly have a very high number of parking spaces compared to all the other properties on the street.
Thank you.
And again, that's not based on any review you made of Mr. Toronto's testimony, where he stated, in essence, that the parking that is being proposed, which is more than is required under the RSIS, that there's more than they will need on-site.
I think you're misunderstanding my testimony. Mr. Simon asked me about the parking on this site, and my point was that there's more parking on this site than you would see on the rest of the street for other properties.
Right. But if the residents down the street, a resident down the street threw a party, and cars had to come to that, your opinion would be they should park somewhere else also.
I haven't really considered that.
Okay, thank you.
Steve, do you have any other questions at this point?
No.
From the board?
Excuse me. The videos of these meetings are available on the website. Go to oradell.org, you can see it. Did you review any of the meetings on this case that you did not attend?
There was only one that I did not attend, and I didn't review that.
So, and you didn't review a transcript of that either?
That's correct.
Okay. Getting to the runoff, we heard a resident say that the runoff that's depicted in the slide, and sir, if you would help me with the slide that.
You're talking about which slide do you want to see? This one or a different one?
The one before this that was there, just with reference. But really, you know what? Let's just say
Paul, can
August
you just
3rd,
actually,
in
terms of Mr. Michaelman, is this the one you want to look at?
Yes, on
Okay.
August 3rd, 2024. That's what we're seeing. And the resident stated that about twice a year you have a water event of this nature. Do you believe that to be correct, or you have no opinion on that? Would you say this happens twice a year, or could happen twice a year?
Based on the testimony that they provided, I have no doubt that it occurred. They have photographs and video of it. And I have a feeling, based on the frequency that they've seen it, this probably happens at least once a year. I think, your point is well taken with respect to this photograph. When you look at the upper photograph, and I'm looking at slide that's titled, on August 3rd, 2024, rained less than 30 minutes. So it took a rainfall event less than 30 minutes to create this. And when you look at it, the runoff is flowing across the neighbor's yard and then coming down onto the applicant's property. And what they're proposing to do is actually completely fill that area and push all the runoff onto the neighbor's property. So that's what we're talking about here. And ultimately, for a storm that's less than 30 minutes for this to occur, and I think your engineer quoted it was a 1.6-inch storm event.
That would be a rather intense storm, wouldn't it?
It's an intense storm, but it's also not an unusual storm amount.
Okay. All right. But twice a year seems an acceptable estimate to you, to have a rain like this?
Well, it's all based on statistics, so whether or not that average would come, that's probably a reasonable number twice a year.
Okay, so your professional opinion is yes. Now, the thing I've been wrestling with, we have water, it runs off. It's not. I think we've had testimony before that the applicants, professionals, seem to feel that what they're proposing will actually make things a little bit better than they are right now. But I'm just stating that as my memory.
Wouldn't be better for this guy.
Wouldn't be better for this guy. Now, water seeks its own level. It's going to be running down, and it's going to continue on past the railroad tracks to the river. Within some matter of time, I'm not a professional, so I'm not going to estimate a matter of time, this water will continue to run off.
Sure.
What I've been wrestling with on this is, we have this event, someone wants to do something to the property. Will that make things worse? Will that be just a temporary situation? Will it be permanent? Will it be better? Will it be the same? I'd like to know how you feel about that, in your professional opinion. Given this, during a rain, will it be worse? Will it be better? Immediately after the rain, will it be worse? Will it be better? An hour after the rain, will it be worse? Will it be better?
I think my concern is what's happening during the rain event. We've seen photos from other events where the storm intensity has been enough to actually knock down a neighbor's fence. So that kind of property damage is a significant issue. When you look at the lower photo on this slide, what you need to recognize is that where the circled fence post is, that is essentially the property line and where the edge of the proposed 4-foot retaining wall and fill would go. So when you look beyond that and see all that water flowing through the fence, that will no longer be allowed to flow there. It's all going to be concentrated in the two fence sections that are this side of that circled fence post.
This side being to the left, I guess?
To the left. So you can imagine what that concentration of stormwater in that small area is going to do there.
What about the structures itself, their residences? What impact will this have on the residences?
Looking from the other photos and looking from air photos, it's hard to tell because there's no topography provided by the applicant for the surrounding properties. So the topography that they included only covers really a small area around the site. So it's a bit difficult to opine on that.
Okay, but you visited the site and you've seen...
Yes, that's correct.
But you didn't consider the impact upon the residences?
No, in fact, I wasn't aware of this before we went out to the site. This was new information to me after we made the first visit. And ultimately, the photographic information as well as the videos are pretty good and do a really good job of documenting what's going on out there and the amount of water that comes off the end of Brookside Avenue.
But what you're discussing is during the rain event, but you don't have an opinion as to what the impact will be 1 hour after the rain is over?
Well, I think obviously the ground will be saturated. You're going to have some erosion because when you concentrate that amount of flow into a smaller area, your velocity is going to increase. So you're going to have damage from erosion. You may have the fences being knocked down and things like that, damage to landscaping. So that's permanent, and that's not going to be just the 1 hour after the storm. That's going to be... And the structures themselves, you don't have any opinion on? Correct. The impact on that? Thank you. I have no further questions.
So I had a question for the applicant, if that's okay. So back to this conversation about the retaining wall and the fill, what's the applicant's view of the impact to the neighboring property, right? As to whether or not, in these events where there's a tremendous amount of rain, is it going to be redirected into the neighbor's property?
Well, this is the first I'm hearing of it tonight, and I'd have to review it with our engineer, but our position is fairly clear in that, first and foremost, it's recognized that although this water is flowing onto these properties, it's not emanating from the property. And secondarily, and important, it's not secondary, important, is that the engineer's testimony in the May 20th meeting states that not only are they meeting all the stormwater requirements that are necessary, but that the stormwater improvements and drainage improvements they propose to make will, in essence, help the situation that's there now, so that it will be an improvement over what happens right now. So if there's, and that's his testimony, so if there's an improvement over what happens right now, it means that the drainage system that they're proposing is going to take some of this away.
Right. I mean, I'll go back and I was here for the meeting, and I'll go look at the transcript again. I don't recall this issue coming up.
The wall per se was not the issue. The comments and the testimony that was made is based on the May 20th meeting and Mr. Hall's direct testimony. We are not a major development that's on that meeting. We are not a major development, and that property is two criteria for a major development, and he explains all that, and the board engineer concurred. And he said, so this is not a major development. We don't have to meet the municipal stormwater ordinance or the state requirements, but we are providing the drainage improvements so that we can capture the runoff from both the roof runoff, parking lot runoff, and runoff from the yard grading. We are capturing that and on the on-site with seepage pits. And then he goes on later on to say that based on the drainage calculations that have been provided, that he not only will meet the standards, but in fact, the standards, that he'll go beyond the standards for what's going to be done.
Right. So I was looking at my notes from that meeting, and that's consistent with what I remember.
Yes.
But to me, that doesn't really address what their engineer is talking about, which is the impact of building a retaining wall and fill and redirecting water potentially off of the property.
We'll stand by the testimony because the retaining wall was shown, and it was on the plan when Mr. Hall testified to his drainage improvements and what it was shown.
I think to be fair to the board engineer, he's probably unaware of this situation before it was presented by the neighbors.
And Mr. Fox, based on the information that not only the board engineer, but now you, of course, now know, based on the presentation from the neighbors and your review of the application materials and the plans, you were just present when Mr. Whitaker read from the May 20th, 2025 transcript, and particularly the testimony, the engineering testimony of Mr. Halls, correct? You just heard that?
Yes.
Right? Do you agree with those statements and conclusions made by Mr. Halls relative to this application based on the information that you know?
Yes.
No.
Thank you.
With specific reference.
Wait, excuse me. What's that?
With specific reference to the major development.
With respect to the major development,
Correct.
but what about the issue as to stormwater improvements with regard to the dry wells and resulting in an improvement to the stormwater management for the site in consideration of the retaining walls and the raising of the grade?
No, my testimony tonight discussed that.
Thank you.
So I think I know the answer to this, but if I was the owner of the project site and I wanted to put up an as-of-right, no variance, single-family home, and I wanted to do all the grading that the applicant wants to do, could I do that as a matter of law? Would I be in violation of any laws by doing
that? I have not considered that, whether or not a conforming development could do that. I think there are certain case law related to drainage and floodwaters, so I couldn't speak to that.
Well, when you use the word conforming, is where I have a question.
Well, I mean, if I could,
Because
without
this
coming
is
for
a
variance.
use that is a conforming use because it's considered the same as a single-family residence. You heard that from your planner.
I meant as of right, no variances.
Right.
Well, I can't speak to what the borough engineer would approve or not approve. I can tell you that in my 29 years as a municipal engineer, reviewing and commenting and approving on probably well over 1,000 grading plans for what the type of thing you're discussing. If I was aware that there's floodwaters flowing through the site, you would never permit somebody to create a situation where those floodwaters would be pushed onto an adjoining property.
And they would be denying that based upon some legal standard?
I think based upon the legal standard of causing property damage to an adjacent property.
Did you see the video that showed the floodwaters coming down
Yes.
Brookside? I'm assuming, but I don't want to assume, that it's not your testimony that the applicant should be creating dry wells to try to capture that floodwater coming onto its property.
That's not my testimony. My testimony is that they should not be developing in the area where these floodwaters are flowing and then causing irreparable harm to the neighbors.
But are you proposing that they should be installing dry walls to capture that water?
To capture the floodwaters that are coming
Right.
from Brookside Avenue?
Right.
No.
Okay.
The number of dry wells that you would need to address that
Right.
would be
Right.
astronomical.
Right. And you're not proposing that they install an underground river to allow those floodwaters to flow under their property and find the river?
No, I haven't. I haven't considered that one way or the other.
Can we go to the one that okay, that one, yes. Would it largely solve your client's concern if, rather than the retaining wall following the property line all the way down, that it jogged and came at an angle and allowed the floodwaters that are shown here to run across the property? So that they could still have the retaining wall, still fill behind that retaining wall, but just relocate the retaining wall in that area?
Well, I think that's kind of a nebulous idea in terms of how far that retaining wall has to be moved. You're quite right, that retaining wall does need to be moved. But as far as how far it goes, that's a much more difficult question to answer. This storm, as you can see from the depth of the water flow relative to the bottom of the fence, is pretty mild compared to the other storms that we've seen photographs from and videos from. So I think you'd have to look at a couple of them. But yes, that's certainly one of our main points, is allowing to fill within where those floodwaters flow and thereby damaging the neighbor's property should not be permitted.
But so is it your testimony that they're not allowed to do any grading at all?
Within where the floodwaters are flowing, yes, that would be my testimony.
So that would go all the way from here, all the way back to Gunther, because once 100 years, there's 3 feet of water flowing down Gunther?
I don't think it's fair to call this once every 100 years. I think as the other board member pointed out, this has happened multiple times in the last, I think it's documented 4 years so far.
But that seemed to be an outlier event, the one with all the video. The video of all the floodwaters coming down Gunther appeared to be a bit of an outlier.
Well, I certainly think it's something you need to consider. What the extent of storm needs to be, that's really a judgment call.
I guess I'm suggesting that might be a fertile ground for compromise.
Oh, without a doubt. I don't disagree with you. But I also think
retaining wall could be relocated, allow some of the floodwaters to flow.
But I also think managing the stormwater from the site with dry wells is really a non-starter for this site, given the permeability, the soil permeability data that was presented by the applicant in their soils report.
I don't have anything further.
My questions are actually answered.
Any questions? Okay.
I have a
No,
question.
I was just curious. Should I interpret your testimony that really this property should remain vacant, that it shouldn't be developed? Because if you put a single-family house on this, wouldn't there be a problem with the neighbors?
I think this property can be developed, but it has to be done in accordance with the borough code, as well as not pushing floodwaters onto the adjoining neighbors.
That's what I'm asking. How could it be developed without pushing the floodwaters on your testimony? How could it be developed without pushing floodwaters onto the neighbor's property?
Well, you stay off that part of the site, as Mr. Barrows was discussing.
That's all. Just have a smaller development?
Right. Normally, you wouldn't want to have development in a floodwater area anyway in the first place.
That was the original question. So I really do want to understand, should this property remain vacant?
No, I don't think that's a reasonable conclusion, and certainly that's not my testimony tonight. My testimony is that there needs to be more consideration as to where this overflow of floodwaters is going, and there needs to be more consideration as far as what the design for the stormwater management system is.
Thank you.
My question, you previously answered a question regarding stormwater not only comes from the sky, but also from neighboring terrain. Are there standards or methodologies that would be used when there is knowledge of groundwater flow, I guess, or surface water flow?
So for surface water flow, that would normally be addressed by, if it's coming from off-site, it would be addressed by how you design the proposed grading for your site to make sure it doesn't negatively impact you or shed water onto the adjoining neighbors that they didn't see before. For groundwater, that's more why you have a soils investigation to make sure that what you're proposing for your stormwater management is a workable solution and will meet the borough code.
And did I understand from your testimony that it is your professional opinion that the applicant's engineer only took into account rainwater flow, or do you believe that they took this surface water and groundwater flow into account?
Well, it did take into account surface water runoff and collecting those into dry wells. The problem is, based on the soils report that was submitted, the soils where the dry wells are being installed has very low permeability. So those will not work in terms of slowly releasing the stormwater into the ground.
To clarify my question, I'm referring to, I guess, surface water flow coming from Brookside Avenue and coming over the curb onto the property.
Mm-hmm.
Is it your opinion that that was taken into account, or should it be taken into account?
I think it needs to be taken into account that where that stormwater flows right now is not disturbed, that you're not taking an action that's going to have a negative impact on a neighbor.
Thank you.
I guess, does anybody from the public not represented by Mr. Simon and team have any questions for the witness? No? Okay. I guess with that, we'll take our short break, and then we'll... Do you have more questions? I'm sorry.
Just want to deal with the date. I think basically probably March the 17th would be the most appropriate.
Yeah, what we're doing,
We should announce what the next meeting will be.
yeah, we're going to carry the case until March 17th without need for further notice.
Got it.
You want to say that?
Fine. So
We're carrying the case until March 17th.
we'll carry the case till March 17th without further need for notice.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Now you can take a break. and I
Take
can
a
leave.
short break, and we'll get back at 9:30 with the next. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your celebrity.
might be wrong. Because they were able to get over.
Now you want my cord again?
It is nice.
You're on. Going at the table?
Have trippy habits. That's all.
Okay. It is 9:30. Do we have everyone in the room that we need? Oh. That's what we need. There we go. Okay, 9:30, we're back in session. Thank you for holding down the fort. We're going to move to calendar 886-25, North Jersey Friendship House.
Good evening. Thank
Hello.
you. Michael Cates, K-A-T-E-S, Cates Nussman, Ellis Farhi, and Earl, on behalf of the applicant. I pre-filed our affidavit of service. Affidavit of publication has not been received yet from Gannett or the record, but I did give to the office a copy of as it was printed in the paper. So as soon as I get the affidavit, we'll clear that for you. I have two witnesses tonight. The CEO of Friendship House, going to talk to you about the operation, what's going to go into that building, and our planner, Charles Height. And I have my engineer here, but he's not going to testify unless a question comes up that he can help us answer. And I promise I'll talk as fast as I can.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so let me please call Denora Dioria, Dr. Dioria, to be sworn.
Okay.
And if you could just please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Dr. Denora, talk first about the agency itself, its history, and then we'll get into more specifics.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Denora Dioria. As Mr. Cates said, I am the CEO of North Jersey Friendship House. North Jersey Friendship House is a 501c3 that's been incorporated in Bergen County since 1964. Our tagline is building skills for productive lives as we support the growing abilities and life goals of close to 500 individuals across the county per year. We operate 4 locations, 3 of which are in Bergen County and another in a nearby county. We provide services that lead to successful outcomes and have earned a very positive reputation with our clients, families, other providers, the County of Bergen, and the state of New Jersey. Friendship House provides daytime services to adults with disabilities, including day habilitation, community integration, vocational rehabilitation, and clinical services. We refer to our participants as members. That's important to note as you hear me speak tonight, given that they are very active participants in their treatment planning and they collaborate with us into the development of their goals that lead them to success. As you may already know, over 10%, or that's around 890,000 people in the state of New Jersey are living with a disability. 7.7% of the population are adults over the age of 21, which account for over 700,000 adults in the state. In Bergen County alone, close to 93,000 adults live with disabilities that impact their daily living. This clearly has a direct impact on their ability to integrate into the community, sustain employment, and lead overall healthy and productive lives. You've also heard the statistics on the rise of the diagnosis of autism. Today, 1 in 35 children will be diagnosed with autism before the age of 10. Those children do grow up and they age out of school services, leading to a significant rise in adults with autism that need support to lead productive and meaningful lives. The majority of the adults that we serve in the program that we are proposing tonight have a diagnosis of autism. There are other adults with other related developmental disabilities. We know that 30 to 50% of adults with autism have what is called high-functioning autism, which also means that they have certain capabilities and skill sets. And these skill sets can absolutely lead, with the right services, to positive outcomes. We have 60 years of experience as an agency and in successful implementation of programs that provide clinical and vocational rehabilitation to adults with these disabilities who, at the age of 21, like I said, have aged out from school services and would otherwise not receive ongoing supports.
So tell us, let's focus on tonight and how you plan to use the facility.
We're here tonight to request a use variance for the property on Kinderkamak Road that will enable us to provide these services to our members in that location. Our use of the property will include vocational training and rehabilitation services that we are well known for, as well as clinical services that are embedded into our program. That includes occupational speech therapy that strengthen the services that we provide. And this is for close to 80 adults with developmental disabilities. Our members are a unique group of adults with disabilities that are not easily served by other agencies. Adults with autism are an underserved population, given that they present with skill deficits, behaviors, or capabilities, in our case, that make each person highly unique. Many providers frequently carry waiting lists, as we also have carried, that can drag on for months in order to provide the right fit for the right individual in the right program. The Division of Developmental Disabilities in the state of New Jersey, which regulates our programs, is continuously seeking for providers and provider expansion in order to meet the high demand for services. In Bergen County, there are several other providers that offer similar services: the Arc of Bergen, Children's Aid and Family Services, Spectrum for Living, but most of them don't offer the high level of skill-based programming that we do. Their services, which are greatly beneficial to this population, focus mostly on recreational type activities, while we, in addition to that, have developed curriculum-based skill sets that closely address productivity and skill development. That is our entire focus. We address areas like problem solving, advocating for personal needs, safety skills, money management, life skills, travel training, the gamut. We also have a very unique focus on vocational training that has demonstrated high employability for adults with autism and related disabilities. The following types of vocational training services will be offered at this location: computer skills, including graphic design, embroidery, clerical and reception duties, janitorial services, hospitality management, restaurant serving skills, etc. Individuals that we have supported in the past and that we still support are currently employed in locations such as TJ Maxx, Home Goods, Marshalls, Newbridge Medical Center, the Bergen County offices, Whole Foods, Fleming's, ShopRite, and more. Our individuals, that as we provide vocational training, they also enjoy the dignity of being paid for the work that we do. We see this as a crucial component of vocational rehabilitation and training, and it's part of our program planning. As mentioned before, DDD, which is the Division of Developmental Disabilities, is the state agency that oversees, regulates, and certifies the programs we provide. They currently fund services for over 2,700 adults in Bergen County. DDD inspects and oversees every aspect of our services, including our physical plant, health and safety, programming, policy and procedure development and implementation, outcomes, and more. Every individual supported in our programs is assigned a support coordinator who's required to visit that member on a monthly basis in the program. So that provides an additional layer of ongoing oversight on the part of the state of our facilities and the services that we provide. They have already visited this site, and they have provided us with positive feedback and conditional approval, which will be implemented immediately upon this borough's approval. This program will be transitioning to Oradell from a location in nearby Washington Township, the Township of Washington, which is no longer able to accommodate our growing needs. The property at 496 Kindercamack Road, formerly known as Huntington Learning Center, is perfectly suited for our programmatic services and requires very minimal updating at all. The layout of the spaces and the furnishings on each floor is ideally set up for an educational, therapeutic, and vocational environment. After several years of searching, this location is ideal in terms of the facility layout, like I said, affording access to the community and opportunities for community and vocational growth.
So focus on what you're doing by way of improvements.
The entire section of the sidewalk in the front of the building towards Kindercamack Road from driveway to driveway will be completely replaced. It's seen better days. We're going to add on the south side of the parking lot 2 additional handicap spaces. There are 2 handicap spaces there. We're adding 2 additional ones, and those will be van capable. So we will have a total of 4. We're going to replace the main building signs on the front, and the exit signs to carry our name. And in the south side of the parking lot, we're going to cut open a door to provide easier access to that area on the ground floor that is going to have a lot of the vocational services and equipment there.
Are you expanding the footprint of the building?
Not at all.
Not touching it?
Not touching it. No changes to the appearance.
And you're not giving away any of the lot, are you?
A what?
You're not giving away any of the property?
No, we're not giving away any of the property.
Building stays as it is, land stays as it is?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Hours of operation?
The hours of operation of the program are 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. We do have administrative offices also in the building who operate on a much broader, around 7:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. at any given time. That's approximately 13 people in administration. The program itself from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m.
And talk about the number of employees totally?
Currently, the number of employees are 43, of which 13 of those are the administrative that I mentioned, and the current programmatic staff are 30.
We are providing for a dumpster location that is not on the plan that we see. Is that correct?
That's correct.
What is the plan?
So the dumpster right now is located, Charles, can you point it out? Exactly, right there. We're comfortable with that placement as far as the flow there. It is right on the corner of the property.
And is there an alternative location?
Thank you. The very opposite corner, which would face directly as the truck is pulling into the driveway.
Let me make an offer that will be enclosed by a fence. We have design schemes for either locations, but it is on rollers, it is movable.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. Let's please talk about the parking count and the parking spaces, so we understand what's available and what we really need, and whether we're undersized or oversized.
Okay, so the parking currently, and forgive me if there's a little bit of, there's 94 spaces on my count. At any given time, given the count of employees that I gave you before and the essence of the program, where there is transportation that these individuals come to the program, they're not driving there and parking there, we don't foresee use of more than 70 spaces. So the parking is really significantly in excess of what we will ever use.
Vehicle circulation, let's just go over it real quick. How do the
So the north side of the property has the entrance. Vehicle circulation goes through that. Let's talk about drop-off specifically, which is program specific. So vehicle circulation goes through that entrance, following the arrows and under that part of the building that has parking below it, and then the vehicle would exit the south side driveway.
All parking aisles are one way?
Yes.
And there'll be a drop off. Now, how many vans did you say you run?
So we have 3 vans and 3 cars type vehicles. We also have transportation provided by families, if the individual lives at home with families, by the group home, if that's where they live, and by Access Link or related forms of transportation. Drop-off occurs anywhere between 8:30 and 9:30 or 10 a.m. Majority of the drop-off occurs after 9 a.m., the vast majority, actually. There's only about 4 vehicles that come through between 8:30 and 9. So the vast majority is between 9 and 10, and then at the end of the day, by 3 p.m., all traffic is done. All pickups are done.
I understand your administrative staff is in place
Yes.
under a CCO.
Yes.
Have you had an inspection by the fire department?
Yes.
And?
And it's been approved.
I haven't received any statement or report from fire or police. I don't know, Mr. Dupkin, whether it's been done.
None submitted.
We have no response. I believe that's it. Leave her for questions.
Okay, let's start with our professionals. Caroline, want to kick us off? Any questions?
Sure, thank you. Thank you for your testimony. I'm just trying to understand the parking a little bit. I think you testified that you have 94 spaces. You don't foresee the need to use more than 70 spaces. So you have 43 employees. I guess I'm just trying to figure out the math a little bit.
Yes.
If you could maybe fill in some of the blanks.
Yes, I'm incorporating a small amount of growth and employees into when I say 70 spaces. So I'm trying to max out what I feel will be the maximum usage of parking, even with programmatic growth. In addition to that, Huntington Learning Center has leased back about 2,500 square feet on the second floor of the building, and they are allotted 3 parking spaces.
So Huntington Learning Center has leased back some of the property, so they're going to utilize some of that. And to clarify, the Huntington Learning Center isn't involved with the current variance application, correct? It's the variance application is in connection with your proposed use.
Right.
Do you, just to go back to the drop-off, is it typically, you said it was vans and parents who drop off?
Yep.
Do any of your members typically drive, or does it, no?
No, maybe one, and occasionally.
Okay, so it's definitely not the norm.
Correct. Yes. And we don't have, it's not like a school where there's a set time where everybody has to be there at 9 a.m. They're adults. They filter in, so there is no congestion of traffic between those hours of people coming in. It's maximum 2 or 3 vehicles driving through at any given time.
Okay. And you indicated you're moving from Washington Township. Is that the Washington Township that's right here in Bergen County?
Yes.
Because there's several of them in New
5
Jersey.
minutes away. Yes.
And so is this the same? So your offices are currently in Washington Township, as well as these, as the programming opportunities that are there. That's all shifting to this location.
Our administrative offices were in Hackensack.
Okay.
We are still operating out of Hackensack. We moved administration out of that Hackensack building in order to allow for more operations of programs in that Hackensack building, and we moved administration into Oradell.
Okay.
This is to move the program that is operating in Washington Township also into the Oradell building.
Okay, so you move here. Would you say that the services that are offered are, am I understanding your testimony that your services are unique and perhaps something that maybe can't be found elsewhere, although there, as you indicated, there are other groups that provide a variety of services, but what you're providing is maybe unique and a benefit to the community at large.
Most certainly,
good.
yes.
The other variances were in relation to the floor area of the building, which doesn't sound like it's changing. It sounds like that might be a pre-existing situation, and then some signage variances. Basically the use. I'm just looking through my notes, Mr. Chairman, excuse me, my report.
While you're looking, we did submit to the county. The county waived. They're happy with what we're doing, relocating those signs, and so we're exempt. We're exempted.
I think probably the rest of my questions are going to be for your planner.
Okay.
But thank you.
Okay. Thank
Dave?
you.
Sure. Just a couple questions. So, I mean, as far as drop-off, can you walk us through the site plan where that's actually occurring?
Yes, that one. Charles has it up on the board, but the driveway, the north side of the driveway, you come in, you go under the building, that section of the building, and the drop-off occurs.
Do we need to mark this, or is this the same thing that we're looking at?
It's the same thing that we fought.
It's the same thing that's up on the.
What's marked up here, we will send in as an exhibit, so you see the changes.
I think you have this. Oh,
So the vehicle will stop directly between where you see the two handicap parking locations. That's the entrance of the building there. The vehicle will stop there and drop off the individuals there.
Okay. And then can you just walk us through the drop-off procedure? Is someone there to?
Yes, thank you for asking that. Our staff supervise the entire process of drop-off and pickup, so they are accompanied constantly by our staff.
And then at a typical time, how many people would be dropped off at a given time?
Like I said before, for drop-off, between 8:30 in the morning and 9 a.m., you have between 8:30 in the morning and 9 a.m., you have approximately 24 vehicles coming through. Between 9 and 10 a.m., you have 29 vehicles coming through. At pickup in the afternoon, between 1:30 and 2, you have about 4 vehicles coming through, and between 2 and 3, you have 46 vehicles coming through.
Okay. And what's like the typical, and I guess where I'm trying to get at is just to ensure we have proper stacking for the cars, depending on, if you had 40 people show up all at the same time, do we have sufficient space?
Yes, we've observed this continuously, and at a maximum across that hour, let's say, from 9 to 10 or 2 to 3, you may have 3 vehicles approaching at a time. Okay. So they won't, given the configuration, they're not even visible from the street. There's no jamming.
There's plenty of space there.
Yeah.
For you guys to do your operations and drop-offs, so they won't back up into Kinderkamek.
Correct.
I would assume worst case scenario, if it was, there's additional parking available, so if you had to park somebody, you could do that as well.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. As far as the dumpster, just quickly talking about that, my preference really would be to the north side, just because you do have existing drainage that's in that south corner, so I would hate to have the dumpster enclosure sitting over top of the storm drain. That's that orange, if you go to the south, that's that orange box that you see there.
Yep.
Just for the board's.
Makes sense.
As far as the existing parking lot, I know in our report we had indicated there's a number of existing issues related to the parking lot. Those are all existing. The layout is existing.
The layout is, yes, correct.
There's no proposed changes with the exception of incorporating 2 additional handicap spots?
Correct.
And I would just note for the board's record, based on 94 parking spaces, they are required to have 4 handicap spots. So with the modifications they're doing, that will bring the parking lot in compliance with the required ADA.
Okay.
And as far as the condition of the pavement, I know there was a couple areas that were in poor condition. Is there any plan to address?
In the entrance driveway, we need to correct a little, losing my words here, but you follow me, right?
Yes.
Yes.
You're going to correct that? Understood. It's long.
Thank you.
It's close to 10, so I get it. Okay.
But the rest of the parking lot is in great condition.
Yep. Okay. Now, as far as site improvements, I think you said you're replacing the sidewalk in the front of the property. Anything
Yes.
as far as plantings or anything to the front?
No.
So pretty much, as it sits today, is what it's going to look like when you're done,
That's
with
correct.
the exception of sidewalk improvements and signage.
And signage.
Okay. Great. Thank you. I have no further questions.
All right. Steve?
Yes, I have some, Chairman. In regards to signage, is it going to comply with the borough codes?
Yes.
Okay, so you need to submit information in regards to that signage permit. Renovations, what type of renovations are you doing inside?
There's the door in the parking area on the south side.
I'm talking about the space, interior
In the
space.
we're painting, for
Just paint.
essentially painting, yeah.
Okay, so is it, so I can understand, is it going to be like a classroom situation?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to need floor plans in regards to how the seating is going to be, supplied and everything.
Sure.
Possible.
Yep.
Parking was taken care of, employees. The dumpster area should be an enclosed area. That's what the code is stating. And vehicle, are there going to be overnight parking for vehicles?
The vehicles that I mentioned that are our transportation vehicles, yes, they will be parked there.
So that would be a variance that would be needed. How many vehicles did you say?
7 current.
7 vehicles. Okay. Well. Okay. And there'll be vans or cars or
3 vans. The others are cars.
what size vans are they?
Right now, there's 3 vans. Sorry.
What size vans?
The 12-passenger transport vans.
It's all the same? Yeah, I think so.
Thank you.
Oh, you got some? Oh, here we go.
Okay.
We're good.
Okay, that's all I have, Jim. Thank you.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, can I just follow up on one of his questions? It's regarding the signage. I had some questions about the conformance of the directional signs. So I did note that in my report about them conforming with respect to size and content. So, because there is a new sign ordinance, so.
Yes.
Right, so I did note those in the report, that they might not conform, potential variances, actually,
Right, so
actual variances, so.
That's why I'm asking, are they going to conform?
We will.
Okay.
Yep.
So.
The signage.
They're going to submit signage details to my office, and I'll review it to make sure that it complies.
So, I'm sure that, I'll let them, I don't want to
Just
interrupt.
put a note on it.
So, I'm sure that the planner will speak to that, but what I pulled was the content of the sign and the size of the sign.
Separately.
The directional, I'm referencing the directional signs, because the directional signs, seem to be, they had the name of the establishment, and then the size exceeded the 4 square feet. So that's what.
If they're proposing what is on this plan here, they would need a variance for it.
Right, and that's, I believe I included that in my report, so
Yes.
I'm assuming that.
But he's saying that he's going to comply with the signage
Okay,
code.
Yeah, we are.
okay.
Right? The exhibit that I handed out, which is the dumpster, we call it A1.
Okay.
dumpster enclosure.
Was that it, Steve? Is that everything?
Yes, I'm sorry, yes.
Oh, okay. Danielle, anything before?
No, I have no questions at this time.
No. Any members of the board, questions?
Could I just say, with regard to the dumpster and everything else, is there now like food service being provided there or is this just like brown bagging it and,
Brown bagging it.
So it's not large amount of food?
Correct.
And secondly, you mentioned the number of drop-offs and all under the current scenario. If you had an ideal situation, what in the existing space that you're getting, what would that grow to?
We would grow from close to 80 people now to 115 people.
So there's
maximum.
Currently 80 combined staff and members.
No, those are participants.
Just participants.
Just
There's
participants.
80 participants.
Correct.
And then you would like to grow that to 150.
Correct, just participants.
I mean,
The number that I gave you before of a maximum use of 70 parking spaces would account for that.
Got it.
Can I just ask for a clarification? Did you say 115 or 150?
115.
Okay, thank you.
115, okay.
It's okay, 115.
And then from that standpoint, do you have to comply with that of any other school in terms of nursing care and on staff, and or do you have other, I guess, needs for potential emergency medical services?
No, we don't. We don't have the same requirements as DOE. We follow the DDD regulations. There is not currently a requirement for nursing staff in a program like ours. There are other programs that might serve a more medically involved population that would require a nurse on site, but not ours. And the amount of staff and the programming and the supports is all something that's overseen and regulated by DDD. Oh, CPR training is required of all of the staff. That is required, CPR and first aid training.
Right. So, and as you grow here, so the number of drop-offs and, car services would essentially double.
They wouldn't double because some of those drop-offs, if you think about the numbers that I'm giving you, some of those drop-offs, there's 2 or 3 people in a vehicle. If they're coming from a group home, if things like that, so they wouldn't really double. And from 80 people to 115, there may be 10, 15 more vehicles at any given time, yeah.
Okay. Anyone else?
In terms of the dumpster location, what are the properties to the north and south occupied by?
The north is the gym and rehabilitation center. Thank you. Holy Name Medical Center. And to the south, it's an office building.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Questions? No? Good. Any members of the public? Yes? Okay, please approach microphone, state your name, be sworn in, name and address.
There's going to be any traffic issue?
Hello, Melanie Weisberg, 830 Ellis Place.
Can you please just spell your last name?
Sure, Weisberg.
And what was your address again?
830 Ellis.
And can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Just a public comment on Friendship House. Am I allowed to?
So this section is just for questions of the witness. At the end of the application, there's a spot for public comment.
Okay.
But if you have a question related to what the test. Okay.
I'll be back.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Yes. Here we go.
Paul Latsunas, 50 Beverly Road, Latsunas, Latsunas.
Hold on. Can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Actually, questions. I'm not really testifying, but I have questions. The Huntington Learning Center that's there, they're your tenant?
They are now.
Oh, now that building belonged to Huntington, didn't it, before?
Yes, it did.
So it was purchased
Correct.
by,
North Jersey Friendship House.
oh, okay, so it's a separate entity.
Correct.
Oh, okay, that's
Excuse
all
me,
I wanted to
excuse me.
know.
Do you want to take the handheld mic and answer his questions, please?
No, I'm done. I'm really done. That's all I really wanted to know.
All right.
You can sit here. Anyone?
All right, let the record show her answer was yes. Any other from the public? No takers. We will close it to the public. Okay, next
Mr.
witness.
Hyde, be sworn.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Hyde, what is your professional qualification?
I am a professional planner in the state of New Jersey. I have a master's degree in city and regional planning. I have appeared before this board in about a year or so, roughly.
Is he acceptable to the
I think we can accept you as an expert witness.
licenses are still in place?
Still in place and in good standing.
Okay. Help us understand the zoning scheme.
Yeah, it would be my pleasure. So over the past several months, I've gotten to know the application, all the materials, extensive conversations with Dr. Dioria and the project team. I do have the benefit of reviewing the board planners and engineers review memos. And what we are proposing today is essentially an adaptive reuse of an existing structure to accommodate the proposed North Jersey Friendship House, which provides vocational training and occupational therapy services for adults with disabilities. I won't get into that. I think Dr. Dioria provided sufficient information. A little bit about the property. It's Lot 2 on Block 1103 along Kinderkamak Avenue. Kinderkamak is well known to the board. It's a mixed-use corridor. To the north of the property is the Hackensack the Hackensack HMH gym. To the south is an office structure. I should also wanted to add that to the east is the NJ Transit Pascack Valley Railroad line, followed by the Oradell Reservoir. So we're in a relatively commercial section of Kinderkamak. The lot is irregularly shaped. It's more of a parallelogram than a rectangle. There's approximately 54,300 square feet. That's 1.2 acres. So it is a sufficiently sized property. There is a 3-story office building. Currently, the property has 96 parking spaces. I'll get into that as how it relates to any parking variance. And there are 2 access points to Kinderkamak, one on the north end, which is the entrance, and one on the south end, which is the exit. In terms of the proposed improvements, I think Dr. Dioria did a good job at running through them. Just to reiterate, clinical treatment and vocational training is the specific use being proposed. We are making minor modifications to the site plan, addressing a deficiency in ADA accessibility van spaces. So just to call out again on the plan, we are providing the restriping of parking spaces in this area that's highlighted for van accessible spaces that accommodate an 8-foot wide accessible area to meet current code. The spaces to the north will just be for passenger vehicles. So in essence, these will not be van parking spaces. That's the area to the south. And then these will just be passenger vehicles. So I think one of the comments came up to clarify that from the board professionals, and we will also be indicating those spaces. You can enjoy my mastery of PDF here. 1 second. So we'll be adding in these handicap signage striping on these spaces. So essentially, these are some of the additional revisions, and this exhibit will be submitted back to the board just to follow in our compliance set.
So A2 will be the markup of the site plan.
So that's just to provide some added clarity on the proposed striping changes. We did coordinate with the county with respect to the proposed improvements to the sidewalk, the reconstruction of the sidewalk. It is in deteriorated condition. We benefit from the board engineer's comments on thickness of concrete for driveway aprons. We'll be complying with that. And essentially part of the other discussion with the county is the relocation of the sign. So currently the southern directional sign is off the property location. That was quite interesting. You wouldn't know where the property lines existed when you walk past the site, but we identified that. We're correcting that. The signage location will be an appropriate signage. It's 5 feet from the property line, and it is not in any site triangle from the exit. The other directional signage to the north is relocated a little further back from the property line, and again, that's beyond the 5 feet, and it provides ample identification for the entrance. And lastly, the main freestanding sign is again shifted back further upon the property, and it will essentially be a replacement in kind in terms of the look and feel of the existing signage. The building footprint is not increasing. There's an additional entrance being added, and we are proposing to relocate the dumpsters and the enclosures. That detail was provided to the board. So that's a rundown of the project description. With respect to the use variance, we are in the B2 district. It's the limited business district. I have to read this multiple times over. So permitted uses in the B2 district shall be as follows. A, general and professional office buildings. That's it, as a permitted principal use. B, uses incidental to operating a general office building, such as electric data processing, cafeteria, generators, and other similar uses. So it is not an extensive list. It's not really a robust list of commercial uses. It's offices. It's a bit dated. We have a very nice compatible use being proposed tonight. I'll get into some of that testimony now. Ultimately, this presents a D1 use variance request. We've reviewed this application with myself and Mr. Cates, and we would like to offer to the board that this stands the test of what's called the inherently beneficial use. What's commonly referenced in that is the Sika case from 1992 that established a 4-pronged test. It actually also dealt with relatively applicable use. It was a trauma rehabilitation center. So that trauma rehabilitation center was one of the first ones to undergo this sort of discussion, and they found through this court case that it was an inherently beneficial use, and there is a good test, a 4-pronged test to evaluate uses. Similarly, with respect to vocational training, Children's Institute versus Verona Township Board, 1996, involved the School for Handicapped Children. This is all from a common resource book for land use administration. So I'm sure the board planner may either be aware of the section it comes from, but it didn't have to take a lot of digging to find these cases. This case is characterized in language from the judge as a use that is near the top of the scale of inherently beneficial uses. So providing support for disabled children, and I would also extend that to disabled adults in this application. The last cases that I'll reference just deal with the relationship between existing bulk variances or bulk variance requests and how they relate to use variances. Puleo versus North Brunswick established that when you have a use variance application, bulk variance can be subsumed. It doesn't mean that they imaginarily go away, but there's a connection between use standards and a bulk standards and a use that might not be permitted in the zone. It's 10 o'clock. I'm trying to move along here, so sorry if I seemed rushed. With respect to the inherently beneficial standard that we have to set tonight, I'll just reiterate for the board, it's a 4-pronged test. 1, to evaluate public interest served by the inherently beneficial use. identify any adverse consequences of granting the variance, consider conditions which might be imposed to mitigate any adverse consequences, and then balance the public interest in granting the variance versus adverse impact. Any lessened conditions imposed by the board and determine whether or not on balance there would be a substantial detriment to the public good. Only if the detriment is substantial can the board deny the variance. And professionally, I would also offer to the board that if there's ways to mitigate those adverse impacts, you need to focus on ways to mitigate the impacts to accommodate the inherently beneficial use.
Well, let's go down the list. Are we inherently beneficial?
Yes.
Do we adversely affect the interests of the community in any way?
No, I think the site is fully functional as it is for the use, and all the operations can be accommodated on the site.
So tell me what I have to balance.
So there's this is an interesting application because there's not much movement. There's no proposed structure. I would just add that there's also regional need and regional supply that's brought up in these sort of applications. So we did a bit of research. The New Jersey Division of Developmental Disabilities does provide some basic data and breakdowns of number of persons that provided services through DDD funding. From 2021 to 2024, this total population increased 14% throughout the state. So there's a growth trend there. In each of the past 4 years, Bergen County was the largest population of served persons. 2021 was 2,279 people, and in 2024, this last year, is 2,730. So again, a growth. 65% in Bergen County, 65% of that total is between 20 and 40 years old. These are the adults that are getting the services, the vocational training, and that population has been increasing in terms of the need for the services. When you look at the supply standpoint, as Dr. Dioria referenced, there are other facilities in the general region. So in my review, New Concepts for Living has a facility in Paramus and Rochelle Park. The Arc of Bergen in Passaic County has a location in Hackensack. Children Aid and Family Services, a location in Paramus. Spectrum for Living, a location in Westwood and Teaneck. These are all centrally located, serving the region. I took it upon myself to reach out to one of these other facilities, Spectrum for Living. Obviously, we heard from Dr. Dioria about the lack or the intrinsic need for these services, and both of their facilities are essentially at capacity. So there is unequivocally support for this application, and I think that's just telling.
Can I ask you to focus on the negative criteria?
Yes. So in terms of the negative criteria, I think what the issues raised in the board's review memos really related to a little bit of the programming of the site. We had questions about parking and operations. So first and foremost, based on the proposed use and the need of parking, it's far less than what's existing. We're 94 spaces. If we were to relocate the dumpster, it would be reduced to 92 spaces. Is still sufficient for the proposed use. We originally did have some signage issues, but we're going to be completely compliant with the signage. We are updating the ADA accessibility, and I think what was well discussed tonight is the queuing of drop-off lanes. Any vehicle that cannot easily approach the entrance can easily find a parking space in the rear of the facility. And given that there's only a demand of 70 spaces, there's in excess of 22 spaces that they can park in. There's really no other changes.
Let me ask the $64 question. Will granting the variances result in any substantial adverse effect, either to the zone plan or the zoning ordinance, or the public good?
Yeah, no, I did review the master plan, the recent land use plan, and the CBD district, which isn't in the CBD district, but there's not much impact because the proposed use is very similar to offices in concept. It's all internally occupied. There's no external operation other than the pickup and drop off. And you heard it from Dr. Dioria, essentially need to repaint because of the prior use that was existing. So I don't see any impairment to the zone plan or zoning ordinance, notwithstanding some of the pre-existing conditions that affect the site. And I think we've addressed a lot of the impacts to the general welfare in terms of operational aspects.
No further questions.
All righty. Professionals. Caroline?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your testimony. It was very thorough. I agree this is an inherently beneficial use after hearing the testimony and you know what's going to be occurring on site. And I think you covered the the proofs and the balancing test pursuant to SECA. I also appreciate the fact that this is in the B2 office zone, as you indicated. Office uses are the permitted uses, and this, while needing a use variance, for all intents and purposes, is going to appear and function as an office, maybe minus some of the drop-off and pickup short periods of times. And I think that's important. And I think it's also really important to note that, in, in a time when office buildings are struggling, and filling office buildings is a struggle for municipalities. I think that's something also that's really important to remember. And the planner started his testimony by using the term adaptive reuse of the building, and I think that's another important component. Obviously, the use and the inherently beneficial nature is important with respect to the proofs and the board's consideration, but from a planning perspective and just from the corridor of Kinderkamak Road, I think that's really important as well. So I wanted to have that discussion. I also wanted to talk quickly about the EV space requirement. I know there was a reference to it in my report, and I know in the engineer's report, your attorney did reach out to me. Is there the indication now that you're of the belief that the EV space is not required?
Yeah, my opinion is that it's a mandate for residential uses in the MLUL.
Right, 66.20 of the MLUL.
It doesn't apply to this category.
Right, so the testimony is that there's no EV requirement for non-residential site planning applications?
That was my testimony, yes.
Okay. All right. I'll speak to the engineer.
Sure. I mean, I would respectfully disagree, but
yes.
Given the extent of what's being done, I think it would not be required, just from the standpoint that you're not rehabbing or changing the parking lot itself. The DCA and their take on it, while it does say, for residential, there's also a caveat on there that talks about for parking lots and garages, which this would fall into a parking lot or a garage. Not a garage because it's under the building, but regardless, I think their intent was really, and these were some communications that we've had with their office on other applications, that really if you're not rehabbing or significantly changing the parking lot, that it would not necessarily be required from that standpoint. Doesn't mean that the board doesn't have the purview to ask for something of that nature, being it is a variance application for the use. So, from that perspective, that's as far as the EV.
So that was my last comment, was with respect to the EV. And you are going to have employees there who are there, for an extended period of time who could utilize it. But it sounds like there's been some discussion, and there's not significant, and the rehab, what's going on in the parking lot is not a significant revision to it. So
yeah, I mean, we've gotten information from the DCA, which is the one that kind of issued the rules and the draft ordinance and stuff that's in place. Their discussions with us were, if you're not digging up the parking lot, they don't feel that you should be tearing up the parking lot.
Oh, I see.
Put in the EV. This is for existing facilities, which is what we have here before us. So yeah. As far as questions, I think you covered the majority of stuff that I had in my report. So thank you for the detailed information. The biggest item is really that EV side of things, but I have no questions.
Okay, Steve?
Yeah, my main concern is the drop-off and pickup, and being Kinderkamack Road and, a well-traveled, roadway. And the fact that you might be raising it to possibly 115. What are the plans for on-site directionals for, drop-offs? Will they be directed to the rear of the property, which normally will do, but once they're back there, is there some sort of form or plan to, to get people in and out as quickly as possible?
Yes, because it's supervised by staff, the process is already in place. So people pull up to the door, staff is there, people get out of the car, and they keep going. It's a process that is already flowing, and it's supervised.
So it's already in place.
In the current location.
There's a staff member that is there when a car pulls up?
Correct.
So the car doesn't have to wait, they just pull up, they open up, they go, take out.
Exactly.
Okay. And you don't see any issue with that backing up at all onto Kinderkamack Road?
None whatsoever.
Okay. As far as, leaving, egress going out, are they from all different areas? Are they going to be going south? They're going to be going north? Is the majority of that happening? If that's the case, there's going to be a backup into the site. I don't think, that wouldn't be an issue to Kinderkamack Road, but, are there any plans in that manner?
So the exit of individuals from the program happens very similarly to the drop-off, to the morning. There's no set time, so it really happens across over an hour and a half.
Oh, okay. So when you were saying like 8 o'clock, but it spans like
Correct.
An hour or so?
It starts around 8:30, minimal. It's really after 9 a.m., so well after rush hour. And then at the end of the day, around 1:30 to 3 o'clock. By 3 o'clock, we're done.
Okay. 3 o'clock, it does tend to get busy along the Kinderkamack, roadway.
Yeah.
You might have to look at that, in the future, something. Maybe
Understood.
just, right-hand turn or something like that.
Understood, yeah.
For now. That's all I have.
Okay. Danielle, anything?
I just had a comment. I agree with your professionals about the EV parking spaces. I don't necessarily think they only apply to residential. I'd have to double check that. But as far as here, because you're not expanding the parking, I don't think it would apply here. So I think you'd be exempted from that requirement,
Makes
regardless.
sense. Okay. Anyone from the board? Questions?
I just have one question. I mean, because of the nature of what's going on there, do you feel that building needs any sort of generator or anything?
It has one.
Oh, okay, never mind.
There you go.
And an elevator.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay. Members of the public for this witness, questions? Anyone? Okay, we'll close it to the public then. Is that your case? We can, if you're done with witnesses, we can open for public comment. Correct me if I'm going out of order here, folks, first time around. Public comment, does that make
that's
the right thing to do next?
He's ended his application.
I'm done.
So, yeah, and the questions, so it would be comments.
You,
All right.
you asked if anyone had questions for
We
the
did.
planner. Yeah.
Okay, come on up, public comment.
He's first.
Okay.
Good evening. My
If you
name's Dermot Joy, and I've attended Friendship House for the past 8 years.
Sorry, could we have your address and be sworn in?
Sure. 314 Hackensack Street, Apartment D, Woodridge, New Jersey,
Okay.
07075.
Okay.
And can you just spell your last name?
Joy, Joy.
Okay. And can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dermot Joy, and I've attended Friendship House for the past 8 years. When I first started Friendship House, I was kind of shy and I had a lot of anxiety and not sure that I could get to where I am today. But now I would like you to know that I've been working part-time at Wild Birds Unlimited for a little over 2 years. Working shows me how to help others, and it has increased my self-esteem because it feels good to get a paycheck, and I feel that I'm contributing to society, which I never thought I could do. I still attend Friendship House part-time, and I've lived independently in my own apartment for a little over 5 years. I never really thought any of this would be possible. Friendship House helped me accomplish these goals by always supporting me and teaching me the life and coping skills, money skills, and building up my self-confidence. I consider Friendship House to be my second family. Me and my friends from Friendship House look forward to continuing to learn and work on our life skills at the new building in Oradell. Thank you for letting me speak and for hearing me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay. If you could state your name and address.
Melanie Weisberg, 830 Ellis Place. I think I would know the protocol after all these months of being
okay.
here.
And I know you were previously sworn, but just to make the, thank you. Please, do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I don't know how to follow that young man, but I also have a son who's been with Friendship House for, I think, 11 years. And the success of my son David, who doesn't live in Oradell anymore, is greatly attributed to Friendship House. And there would be nothing, I love Oradell, I've lived here for 35 years. There's nothing better that can come to this town than Friendship House and the facilities and the staff and what they offer. My son doesn't fit into a box, which is one of the things they were talking about. He's not autistic, he doesn't have Down syndrome, doesn't matter what he has, but he doesn't fit into a box. And they found a way to help him fit into society. And it would just be such a wonderful thing for our town to have not only that, but to fill the buildings that are sitting on Kinderkamak Road that are empty. So thank you, and I hope you really consider this. It's a real wonderful benefit. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other members of the public for comment? Oh, one more. Okay.
I realize it's 10:30, and I apologize for keeping you waiting. I'm sorry.
Oh. Oh, I didn't realize. Sam, sorry.
So
about
brief.
that.
I'm sorry.
Go, I'm sorry.
Okay. Name, address?
Sam Tripsis, 327 Maple Avenue.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Every once in a while, you hear about an application like this that makes 100% sense. It's good for everybody. It works. I think it's a great thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, sir.
I don't want to follow that. I'm going to ruin it now. I'm sorry. Michael Eisenstein. I live at 450 Argyle Street.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I feel like I'm married. I've been a resident of Oradell since 1999, ladies and gentlemen. Both of my children have gone through the Oradell and Riverdale school system. I'm going to brag, and one of them just got his DVM through the school system, and I'm very happy and very grateful to live in Oradell. My son, Matt, has been a student for about 10 years now. Since he's 21, he's 31 now, and he still lives with us. Friendship House, as you've already heard, provides developmentally disabled adults, habitation, job training, and supportive work service environments. They do both in-house habitation as well as supporting the environment. In fact, my son has just started a new job at Fleming's, where he seems to be pretty happy and doing pretty well. Again, 5 years ago, I don't think he would have been in a position to be able to work and follow directions, and Friendship House has helped him and provided that. I would like to see them, expand, to be honest. They do a great service, and the kids are very similar to Dermot. Very nice, gentle, very easy to get along to, and very easy for everyone to work with. I would like to say I'm being a little selfish here. I live in Oradell. Currently, the program is in Washington Township, and between you guys and me, Access Link stinks. Having a program in the community that I could actually walk to and bring him and home and not worry about them bringing him around on a bus for 4 hours would really be a personal relief to me. You've talked about the traffic a little bit, and one comment I would like to make is a lot of the traffic that comes in is via Access Link and via, what's the Easy Link service, I think? And it's not one kid per bus. It's 5 or 6 kids on each vehicle that are coming in and coming out. They do a really nice job with job services in terms of getting the kids on the bus, and they seem to draft my son into it to help getting the kids on the bus quickly and out. So I don't think traffic should be a concern as it would be in a more normal one-on, one-off type of environment. And as Dr. Denwer said, you know, it's not a set everyone coming in within 15-minute periods. It's over time. I think there's something here for the town to do, too. One of the things they do work on and have done a lot is walking through the community, bringing the groups into the community and bringing the groups into the businesses. They do shop in the schools, in the businesses and the community, and they do things like run pizza parties, and they have food coming in, services, and that would always be supplied by the local industry, local companies here. So I think it would be a positive for Oradell to have them in the community as well. I don't want to take up too much of your time because I know it's getting late and you guys have been here for a while. So I just want to say thank you very much for hearing us and considering the application.
Okay. Thank you. Is that it for the public? Oh, one more?
Hi, Kit Wong Koo, 612 Martin Avenue, Oradell.
Can you just spell your last name?
WONG-KHOO.
And can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So we have been living in Oradell for 23 years. My daughter just turned 22 yesterday. And she's one of the participants at the Friendship House program called Project Search. And so she is getting job training at Newbridge Medical Center. So this program will end in June 2020, this year, June 2025. And then after that, she will be continue with Friendship House, the trainings to get herself, equipped. So my daughter, it's a cancer survivor since age 2. So I'm just, when they told me that they're moving to Oradell and also for the United Way, building the group home in, Oradell, I'm just very grateful with everything that they do. So, if she can get a job, get the training, and even like walk to Friendship House, everything will be in the community. It cannot be, like, as a parent, I cannot ask for more than that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of?
Want you to talk? It's late.
If you have something unique to add,
I'll be short. My name is Chris Manning, Manning. I live at 257 Country Club Drive here in Oradell. I've been living here forever.
Can you please just raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So my nephew attends Friendship House, and it's just everything everybody has said, I just want to reiterate, is true. And the biggest thing is he's learning how to do jobs and to work. And he works at like Allendale Bar and Grill, doing setups of tables. He works at Volkswagen. He loves cars, so he works at one of the dealerships. And it's a really good opportunity for him to be with other people and to learn jobs, to be able to do things on his own, and hopefully one day be able to live on his own. So that's it. I think it really needs to be here, and it's a perfect spot for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it for the public? All right. Thank you. We will close it to the public. I think nothing left but for the board to talk about it, deliberate. Sound right? Want to get us started?
I think based off of the testimony and the public comment, all of my questions and concerns were addressed. So I'm happy and satisfied with what I've heard. I could leave it to the rest of my colleagues here.
I thought it was an excellent application. The professionals gave spot-on testimony. It's clearly a inherently beneficial use, and I can't see any negative aspects to it.
I would repeat the same. Seems like again, all the questions are addressed in terms of the benefits to the community without any real detriment, and you guys did a fantastic job on your presentation and answered all the questions.
Thank you for an excellent presentation. I agree with my colleagues. It seems like an inherently beneficial use and no negatives.
Okay.
I also thank you for the presentation. I have nothing new to add. I agree with everything that's been said.
Yeah, this seems like a real win-win for the organization, for our town. It's great to see so many of our residents already using your services. So also great presentation, very clear. Anything that was potentially negative, I think, have been addressed, and great job.
I agree with my colleagues and have nothing to add.
Okay. Cool part about going last is I can say I agree with everyone else. And they have covered it adequately, and I do agree. I think it's a straightforward, good use.
Do we want to put a condition that the dumpster be to the north?
That is what I was going to ask. Can we add the dumpster move to the north as a condition of approval? Are you open to that?
Yes.
Steve, do you need a floor plan dependent for the approval, or can that come later?
That can come later.
Okay. And the signage?
And the signage.
Okay.
What about the overnight parking? Overnight parking?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, overnight parking was added as a variance request for the facility vehicles?
7 vehicles.
Right?
Yeah.
For the vans? For the vans. Yes.
Okay, so that is added to what we are potentially voting on. With that in mind, do we have a motion either to approve or otherwise?
I'd like to make a motion that regarding item 88625, North Jersey Friendship House Incorporated, that we accept their proposal along with the variances for the conditions of signs and dumpster move, and that we be approved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Can we call the roll?
Sure. What did I do with this? Ms. Day?
Yes.
Mr. Camparelli?
Yes.
Mr. Bartlett?
Yes.
Mr. Barros?
Yes.
Ms. Odensky?
Yes.
Mr. Devine?
Yes.
Mr. Santaniello?
Yes. Okay, congratulations.
Thank you.
Variance is approved. I'm going to try to get this right. As you know, there is a 45-day period after which the resolution is approved, where there is an opportunity for folks to object. So
Understood. I'm the board attorney in Englewood.
So you know.
And I was approached by an applicant. It was a temporary installation of a satellite dish and a loss of power, and it was an public emergency. I'm saying this because I think we're in this, and I was asked to write a letter to the construction official asking if we could move our program in they could move the program in pending the resolution and the 45 days. I'm asking the same of the board. Is it all right for us to, or ask Steve directly?
I think if he gives us a letter stating that he realizes that you're operating at your own peril.
If everyone could keep it down, we're still underway here.
Wait, please. I'm sorry.
Give a letter just notifying us that you're going to, you understand that you're going to be opening up and operating at your own peril in the event that somebody decides to object to the, or appeal the application.
You'll have it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. All right, if you could exit quietly, if you're going to exit, we have a little bit more business. We have one residential application left. We're past where we would usually cut off here, but we did keep you waiting. Professionals, board members, can we get through this?
I don't think so. I mean, the time frame.
Yeah.
I think we should carry it to the next meeting.
Carry it and see them first.
Can that work?
When is the next meeting?
I'm sorry.
March 17th.
Isn't it customary that residential usually goes first?
We were under we had some logistical restrictions today that we couldn't avoid.
You just have to state that you're carrying this application, mention the application.
Okay, yes.
And notice requirement is waived?
We will carry 885-25 until next month, March 17th, without the need for further notice. Thank you.
That's it.
What a marathon. Okay, old business. Do we have any old business? I'll actually mention one thing. Keep an eye out in your email in case you get asked to retake or take for the first time the cyber security course. I've been getting that email. I have to go and finish, even though I took it last year, but I think you have to take it every year.
Yeah, you do. You have to take it every year.
Okay.
Give us the certification, send us an email or something, and we'll keep it on file.
Okay.
Do you not automatically get them if we take the test, or?
I don't think.
No.
Oh, shit.
And that's the same with the financial disclosures, right? You don't automatically.
Disclosure statements, but that'll come when the administrator gets the notification and they have a certain time period that you can submit, and it goes pretty easy.
Yeah.
You know, you got your PIN number, and everything just pops up. You just go through it.
Yeah, that's not bad. So just keep an eye on your oradell.org email. That was everything I had for old business. Any other old business?
Yeah, I think everybody showed up. Everybody got notifications from Gabrielle, and so is that working well?
Yes,
We
thank
can
you.
continue with that. What was she was sending emails first, and then kind of closer to the event weekly, and then did she send a text?
Yeah, there's a text alert.
Okay, good. Yeah, and that helped.
Yes.
I only got one email and one text.
Oh, I didn't get any
Oh,
text.
you only need
Don't feel
one.
bad.
Okay.
I didn't get any text.
You didn't get any text? No. Okay.
Okay.
About the meeting. So.
Worked out. Yeah, thanks everyone for showing up. Thank you, Marvin, if you're still watching. Thanks for coming back. New business. Any new business?
New business.
New business, old business kind of feels the same.
Yeah.
Think we're good?
I think we're good.
Okay, public comment. No? Okay. No takers, we'll close it to the public. We have a motion to adjourn? All right, motion? Second, all in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Oof, what a marathon.
Yes.
for the federal government than traditional Medicare. And unfortunately, people often have healthcare access issues within Medicare Advantage. But I think what we're going to see this year is a more targeted approach, really targeting cuts in Medicaid.